So I went on a little bit of a trip down memory lane last night. Went back to the old VODs from like the beginning of last year, like basically when I like started this shit back in like early 2020, and like damn, it's not really something you think about like when you're like just doing it, but like when you're looking back, damn, it just really goes to show like how far along you've come doing this whole thing. Because like I looked at my setup for the streams back when I first started, and it really was just the most minimalist thing. And now here I am, I just got all this set up here, and it actually almost kind of looks professional. Almost. But regardless, let's not beat around the bush any longer than I want to. Hey everybody, welcome to the stream. Today we're doing some more Great Ace Attorney Chronicles because I cannot let this case go unsolved until Tuesday. I gotta at least see this part to the end before we get to, well, the end, the last case, the final time, the final showdown? Maybe. We'll see. But how about that last stream, huh? We watched the man break down in court, as we always do, but like, no, this time literally, not just in funny Ace Attorney game terms. Like, no, he was literally having a really hard time. I hope he's okay. The judge said he was gonna be like sent to hospital or whatever, and I hope he's recovering well. Maybe we'll see him, maybe we won't. I hope we do, because that'd be nice to check in on him. But for now, how about we stop speaking hypotheticals and actually get into the game, huh? Yeah. All right, here we are back at Sholmes's place, our main old base of operations. I still can't quite believe what just happened. Yeah, yesterday, or I guess it was today in game time. What's the history looking like? Okay, 2nd of November. Oh, it's not gonna tell me. It's not gonna tell me. But I think, judging by the fact that it is like 3:38 p.m., it can be assumed that that's maybe the same day. I don't remember. No, wait, yeah, it was the 2nd of November, so yeah, it's still the same day for them. Okay. I don't know why I got hung up on that, but you know. Perry, always getting hung up on the weirdest things. Anyway. I know. I inquired with the bailiff after the court session was adjourned, and it seems Mr. Vigil was taken to hospital to recover. Right. I mean, considering what happened to him, yeah, that tracks. 10 years ago now, Mr. Vigil attempted to commit suicide by jumping out of the window of the prison governor's office. He sure did. That's really something. Hello, it's time for more What Is Happening. Yeah. That is basically what this case, and I assume the next case, is gonna be like. But ever since then, he's completely blocked the memory of those events from his mind. Nobody knew his secret. Not his family, not even the man himself, but I forced it out into the open. For better or worse. Great, I was right, yeah. Was it wrong of me to do that? Did I overstep the mark, I wonder? Bruno! Hey, Iris. How have you been? Oh, Iris. You were miles away! Anyway, I've brewed a fresh pot of soothing tea for you. Oh, thank you. I need this. You and Susie had an exhausting day so far, haven't you? Oh, Thank you, Iris. How thoughtful of you. Do you happen to know where Mr. Sholmes is? When we came out of the courtroom back into the defendant's antechamber, he just sort of disappeared. Oh, no, I don't know.
He just suddenly sprang to his feet and left. All he said was, I must leave.
I wonder if he's pursuing the mystery of Inspector Gregson's death.
Well, you know what Hurley's always saying, don't you? There are mysteries in this world that should perhaps never be solved. For the construction of a solution comes only at the expense of the destruction of something else.
What does that mean?
He knows very well that when you open someone else's old wounds, you often open your own too. But he just can't take his own advice and leave well enough alone. Solving mysteries is too important to him.
That's so true. Don't say it, don't say it, don't. So true, bestie. God!
That's what I like about Hurley, after all.
I suppose that's the lot of a great detective in some ways.
So then, let's have tea, and I'll give you a hand.
Oh, do you have time, Iris?
Yes, I've finished this month's manuscript at last, with barely a day to spare before the deadline. Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. A brand new story to read in the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes. You know, I always hide Hurley's violin in the days before I have a deadline.
You do? Poor Mr. Sholmes.
I'm sure it's very wise, Iris. How sensible of you.
Why? Wait, am I missing something? Why is that?
Now then, my dear fellows, let's make a plan of action before we continue our investigation.
Fair enough.
So, how'd it go in court this morning?
Dreadful. Next question. Well, we still don't know the truth about what really happened, but one thing's increasingly clear. Lord Van Zeeks definitely didn't do it.
Oh, goody! Yes, that's right. We managed to uncover several new facts as well. Oh, really?
And there was another development too. Kazuma.
Yes, it's quite clear now.
That Kazuma-sama is not himself.
The way he's acting, it's almost as if he's possessed.
I know. I mean, at the end of the proceedings earlier, he was like a bloodhound the way he was chasing down Mr. Vigil's forgotten past. He's not normally so mercilessly persistent. What's going on in his head, I wonder? I really need to sit down with Kazuma and try to understand what he's going through. If Gregson really was murdered the day before his body was discovered, then Lord Van Zeeks has to be innocent, you see?
What? The day before? Well, that should be easy enough to work out just by examining the corpse, surely.
Yes, you would expect so, but curiously, no time of death was included in the autopsy report.
That is curious.
There are still unanswered questions about Lord Van Zeeks, though, aren't there?
Ah, do you mean...
I mean, what was he doing there on Fresno Street in that day in the first place?
Well, according to the man's testimony, he said he was investigating Inspector Gregson, didn't he?
And it turns out that little room was actually the inspector's secret office.
Ooh, that sounds like it has all the makings of a wonderfully devilish plot.
But then why was that notice board in there all covered in those particular papers? Papers about cases with a link to the Reaper. I'm starting to get a bad feeling about all this.
Oh dear, that sounds more like something horribly devilish. We must start by looking into Inspector Gregson's movements of late.
Gregson's movements. I never imagined I might have to be investigating an inspector's movements.
Well, according to the entry in his diary, he was carrying out an incognito investigation of the Red-Headed League before his death. Oh, you mean he was doing the same as Hurley?
Well, Mr. Sholmes was trying to apply, whereas the inspector was supposed to be investigating.
I do wish it had been the other way around.
Anyway, as it turns out, the inspector who went to investigate the Red-Headed League that day wasn't actually Gregson at all. It was Mr. Vigil in possession of Gregson's identification.
You know what that sounds like to me? Establishing an alibi. Oh my! Yes, you're absolutely right, Iris.
But why would Gregson need an alibi?
It would appear that the inspector had something to do that he wished to keep secret. I don't believe it. I always thought he was just a harmless lover of fish and chips.
But perhaps they were seasoned with something a little more potent than salt and vinegar. Runo, that's cheesy, come on.
I think perhaps we should try to move away from food analogies.
Well, anyway, if Lord Van Zeeks felt the need to investigate Gregson.
Yes, I agree. We must try and find out what he knows. Vigil, you say? Isn't that the name of the lady who came to visit Hurley yesterday? That's right. To ask Mr. Sholmes if he would help her to find her missing husband.
Only Mr. Sholmes completely passed the buck to us. Actually, didn't you say that Mr. Vigil had been taken to hospital? Do you know which one? Is it St. Sinner's again?
Ah, it's St. Sinner's. Yeah!
We only have one hospital in London. Let's go! I'm starting to wonder if all the other hospitals in London have closed down.
But that's amazing, Runo. You found the lady's husband already.
Well, I suppose I have. By accident.
And 10 years ago, while Mr. Vigil was the chief warder at the prison,
he was responsible for overseeing the professor's incarceration.
No!
So, when the convict escaped, he was held responsible and immediately dismissed.
Sometimes I really don't want to grow up.
There's more. For 10 years after that, while he was ostensibly working as a peddler, he also had another secret job. He was paid by Gregson to be his stand-in, to impersonate the inspector.
To impersonate Gregsy? But why?
I have absolutely no idea.
Ginny was right. I'm starting to think all adults are up to no good now. Including you, Runo.
I haven't paid anyone to impersonate me.
That means he has ties to the professor and to Inspector Gregson, though.
Are we even? I mean, Sasato's 16. Is Runo 18? Did we ever get his age? Are we an adult? Probably. Yeah, probably at least 18. Ryu's like 25. He looks considerably younger than Phoenix did in his first game. That's all I'm saying.
So I do think we ought to pay a visit to Mr. Vigil, don't you?
Back to St. Sinner's then.
Well, I think it's clear what we need to do, isn't it? Let's investigate, my dear fellows. Oh, Iris, you're even more enthusiastic than usual today. If anyone has anything to hide, my special Wilson's shooting iron will soon set them straight.
That water pistol?
It's stuffed full of a hyping pot extra special blend of mine. But I'm quite sure it will be very effective.
I'd better be careful not to hide anything. Well, it feels a little strange that Mr. Sholmes is nowhere to be seen, but still. Let's go and see what we can find out.
Yes.
All right, let's go. Okay, so we have... they want me to go to Mr. Vigil first, I guess, so let's go there. Or not. He ain't here. Magatome's overrage is called the witness, yeah. These must be the patient's treatment notes. Tendency to jump from windows. Remember to place cushion at base of wall outside. Aren't we a story up from the ground here?
Oh dear, poor Mr. Vigil.
I can't help feeling that there's a better solution to the problem than a cushion, though. Finding something you'd lost isn't always a happy experience, it turns out. Pursuing the truth can be a very dark business sometimes, can't it?
Yes, I'm afraid it can.
Oh, look, a pair of crutches. Before we came to Britain, I hadn't realized they were used here as well.
I imagine they were imported into Japan from Great Britain in the first place.
Oh, so no one in all Japan broke a leg before their arrival? Anyway, the sight of these things doesn't bring back good memories for me.
Oh dear, did you injure yourself once and need to use some?
When I was little, I thought they looked like fun, so I borrowed a pair to play with. But then I slipped and sprained my ankle.
I see.
They contain powerful magic, those wooden staffs. The power to heal and the power to harm.
I think a certain cheeky little boy managed to cause the harm all by himself.
Ah, patient treatment notes. What do these say, I wonder? Endlessly obliging. I suppose that's referring to the patient in this bed.
I would think so. Until Mr. Vigil's a little more stable. It's probably just as well that he has a kindly person in the neighboring bed.
The endlessly part is a little worrying, though, isn't it? I mean, what if Mr. Vigil suddenly declared that he'd like to take a trip out of the window? Will this endlessly obliging patient simply open it for him and say, "Be my guest"?
Let's check with the doctor later.
Alright, where do we go then? If not here, where do we go? I guess we can just work our way down.
Lord Chief Justice, are you in? Oh, he's in. Oh, and look who else is here. Lovely.
No arguments, Prosecutor Osogi. You will continue with the trial exactly as I instructed. Is that clear? Perfectly.
It's Kazuma-sama.
Defying Lord Strongheart by the sound of it. He never did know when to back down. On your way now, Asogi. My lord.
Hi, Kazuma. Bye.
He left without saying a word. Yes, what are you doing here? Oh, I was just hoping to ask you a few questions, if you wouldn't mind. I wanted Van Zeek's trial concluded today, but Prosecutor Osogi's unwelcome inquiries are going to make it take longer than necessary. Unwelcome inquiries? As a result, I'm losing even more precious time. Currently 2 hours, 55 minutes, and 41 seconds. 42, 43...
Then we must resolve everything before 3 hours have passed, Mr. Naruhodo.
In a miraculous not even 5 minutes? Anyway, I can't let the man's obvious bad mood put me off. I need information! Buddy, we need to talk. Does Prosecutor Osogi believe that Lord Van Zeeks is the Reaper? I wouldn't know. It was 10 years ago, in that fateful closed trial, that Lord Van Zeeks made a name for himself among the judiciary. The next trial he fought, he lost. It meant the ringleader of a criminal organization was acquitted, thanks to all the jurors being under duress. But that's awful! The man's freedom was short-lived. He lasted just 3 days.
Yes, let me see. He died in a rock slide at his place of work, I believe.
Correct. That was the inauguration of the Reaper of the Bailey. And people believe Lord Van Zeeks was responsible? He was brought to trial himself, but it was shown to have been an accident. So he must have had a solid alibi then. Nevertheless, the mysterious deaths continued. In total, 16 persons perished in unusual circumstances, ostensibly at the hand of the Reaper. That's a long run of coincidences, wouldn't you say?
Well, the Reaper's true identity may well be revealed by this trial.
And the impact that revelation would have on the British public cannot be understated. Is that why it's a closed trial? Precisely.
Okay.
This country hasn't seen a closed trial for 10 years. So the last one was the professors? The trial of Genshin Asogi? Correct. Actually, we heard that originally you were going to prosecute that trial yourself, Lord Strongheart. Van Zeeks entreated me to relinquish the prosecution to him, that he might avenge his brother's death. And here we are, 10 years later. With the son of the man Van Zeeks has condemned, now looking to avenge his father's death in the same way. It's like poetry or some such. They do say that what goes around comes around. However, it would seem that the new young prosecutor is harboring some ulterior motive as well.
Kazuma is?
I like my organization to run smoothly, in the exact manner I prescribe. As with the giant clock in here, I won't tolerate a single cog being out of step with the others. Ah, so that's what all these gears are about in here. If the young man refuses to mess with the other parts of my great machine, I will be forced to take steps. What do you mean? Not something with which you need concern yourself. In any case, all your questions will be answered tomorrow. Now, I shall have to ask you to excuse me. As of this moment, I've been delayed from attending my next meeting by precisely 3 hours.
Oh my, that is a long time.
And I hold you entirely responsible, of course. Even though we miraculously managed to fit everything into not even 5 minutes? I wonder if you might agree to us, talking with Prosecutor Asogi? Discussions between the defense and prosecution outside the courtroom are generally frowned upon. However, I will make an exception in this case. Now go. You can find him in his office.
Oh, thank you. Let's go see him at once, Mr. Naruhodo.
Kazuma's my best friend in the world, but I'm really not at all sure I know how to talk to him at the moment. Best friend. A new location has been added. Let's go. Yeah, it's just Barrick's place again. I was gonna ask, but then I realized now it's probably gonna be the same. Well, it's the same, but a little different. So this is the office of Prosecutor Asogi now, is it?
Kazuma-sama is doing so well for himself.
Asogi is my bestie, but what he's saying isn't so true. Shut. Even though he's always forced to kneel on the floor in that... Okay, I'm sorry. Even though he's always forced to kneel on the floor Japanese style in that dark corner?
It's his habit to sit Siza style whenever he's working.
Well, it looks like our journey here was wasted. The prosecutor appears to be out.
Perhaps we should discuss things with another prosecutor we know first?
I mean, that is the most unsubtle cue to go, like, talk to Barrick. But, you know, I want to examine whatever this is. Let's see, what have we here?
Mr. Naruhodo, it would be very underhand to glean information from Kazuma-sama's office while he's absent. We should wait until he's here before we start nosing around.
Oh, of course, yes. She doesn't take any nonsense when it comes to Kazuma, does she? Man, okay, I guess that's just, yeah, alright, fine. I guess that means we might as well. Let's go to prison. Hey.
Lord Van Zeeks is reading. Look. It doesn't seem like he wants to visit us, does he?
But he must have noticed that we're here, surely. What do you Nipponese want?
Oh, excuse me. I'm British.
That's no way to greet the lawyer who's trying his hardest to prove your innocence, is it? Perhaps not. Huh? I apologize. So, what can I do for you, Mr. Naruhodo?
Lord Van Zeeks, speaking earnestly. Oh, the fog will lift over London for the first time in months tomorrow.
This does feel very, very strange. But, let's talk, eh? I must say, I was impressed. Oh? Well, thank you. Not by you. Oh. By your fellow Nipponese, your prosecutor friend. Oh. I see. Yes. It's sardonic, don't you think? For a man such as me, so loathing of the Nipponese, to be entirely at the mercy of the two of you. I suppose. It's retribution for having played the part of the Reaper all these years. Played the part? Eh. You once told me that you gladly allowed people to believe you were the Reaper, because it helped reduce the amount of serious crime that took place in London. Why are we defending this man? I would say same reason we defended Edgeworth, but I mean, you know, at least with Edgeworth we didn't have to deal with racism. Whatever. Because it helped reduce the amount of serious crime that took place in London. If keeping quiet and playing the part benefits the cause, a cause I myself am committed to pursuing, then why would I choose to say anything? But the henchman of a criminal killed by the Reaper attacked you only the other day. And that was just the most recent of many attempts on your life, wasn't it? Someone is clearly profiting from your silence about all this. Someone is using you! Believe me, ever since the Reaper first appeared, I've been doing my utmost to expose him. Expose him! Expose him! Or rather, expose the organization.
Ah, it's a whole organization?
It's inconceivable that all those accidents were orchestrated by one man. No, the Reaper always appears to have very accurate information about the accused in each case, which can only mean that somebody at Scotland Yard is involved.
Someone at... You can't mean...
It's taken me many years, but I finally identified the central figure in this Reaper organization. Tobias Gregson.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
No. No! Gregson? The Reaper?
So, wait, the reason you were investigating Inspector Gregson is because you intended to expose him as the Reaper? As I said, the Reaper of the Bailey is no single person. It's a highly secret organization with close ties to Scotland Yard. There's no doubt that Gregson was a key member of that organization.
I don't believe it. Are you saying that Gregsy, that he was behind all those awful criminals, meaning that...
Gregson didn't do the dirty work himself.
Oh.
He was the tactician. His job was to covertly investigate the marks and plot their assassinations. In order to do that without arousing suspicion, he regularly needed a firm alibi.
Which is where Mr. Vigil came in, posing as the inspector.
Vigil knows nothing of the Reaper, but the room he rents on Fresno Street was almost certainly the headquarters of the operation. Gregson would have met the assassin there for briefings. So we don't actually know who carried out the killings then. Actually, I do have a name.
You what? Well, if you can name the man, you have the true identity of the Reaper already then.
Or if I can name the woman.
Oh.
She's a young woman by the name of Assassin. Okay, first off, fuck you. Second off, it's the name from the end of the first game!
With the A and the shin.
Tsukimi. Wait, what? Shin? Miss Asa Shin, the true name of a terrifying killer I know only too well. Yep. I was too caught up on her name being Brett, I didn't get the pun. Yeah. She came to Japan posing as a visiting student and murdered Dr. John H. Wilson. Then just went to see if the diplomatic protection would help with her escape Japan and conviction. The mysterious woman was herself murdered in a small summer beach hut. And that woman was actually the Reaper of the Bailey? You wouldn't think it.
Mr. Naruhodo, this perhaps isn't the place to discuss.
No, No, of course not. We can't mention it here. The fact that she killed Dr. John H. Wilson. Yeah? She's right here, guys! Because Iris doesn't know, and it's very likely the man was her father. Don't look at me with those big old eyes.
Sashin, I should let father know at once.
Yes, I agree. Anyway, distracting from that topic as soon as fucking possible. Kazuma, isn't it? Kazuma Asogi. You say he's a friend of yours?
My best friend.
He's the whole reason I got to come to Britain. It was all on his merits. I have nothing but respect for him. Yes, I understand that only the very best students are selected for such opportunities. I had a fine demonstration of how sharp he is in the proceedings earlier today.
He missed nothing.
In fact, his flawless performance very much reminded me of his father.
Genshin Asogi.
Yep, the professor. It's true that the aristocracy at the time was the root of numerous grave societal problems. They were abusing their power, playing with the common man as pawns in politics, in economics, in war. In many ways, Asoga was carving out a canker from society that we British couldn't deal with ourselves.
I see.
But that's precisely why it makes no sense. Clint Van Zeek was a noble and upstanding man. He wasn't corrupt. Why did that damned Nipponese have to go and take my brother's life?
In spite of having once saved mine.
What? He saved your life? How did that happen? It was 10 years ago, on a foggy night. What was to be the professor's final strike had sent a wave of panic through the capital. So Clint Van Zeek had already been killed at this point then. Genshin and I were walking down some back streets at the late hour. Of course, at that point, I had no idea of the true nature of the man at my side. All of a sudden. Don't make a peep! You're coming with us! We were surrounded. All of our assailants were armed with pistols, their faces obscured by scarves. Clint was not only from noble heritage, but he was a brilliant prosecutor as well. The scum of London hated the sight of him, and they had no sympathy for his younger brother either. I'd been targeted several times before already. Yeah, it's Van Zeek's all right. We got him! I could hear them murmuring amongst themselves. I knew they were after me. But just when I thought my time had come... If I let them kill you, Clint would never forgive me. It was Asogi's voice, just a whisper in my ear. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Are you expecting some kind of bit? After that, I don't remember exactly what happened. The next thing I knew, there was silence all around. Genshin lay on the cobbled street. Blood was seeping from his left hand. He'd shielded me. 2 days later, they arrested him. On suspicion of being London's most notorious mass murderer ever, the Professor.
How awful for you.
All at once, I lost the brother I revered and the foreign friend I held in such high regard.
I'm so sorry, Lord Van Zeek.
Listen very carefully, Beric. I need you to go to GameStop and we are literally being attacked! That's the end of my miserable tale. I never thought I'd recount it to anyone.
Well, thank you for confiding in me, I guess. The Professor, the Reaper, and Inspector Gregson. I wonder just how intimately related they all are.
I still can't quite believe that Gregson was essentially the Reaper. Given assassination orders to Giselle Brett?
Mr. Naruhodo, let's go and inform my father. I'm sure our government will want to hear about this new information. Oh, that means I get to meet your daddy, Susie. Hooray!
Yeah, alright. Let's head back to the Great Waterloo Hotel then. Bye, Van Zeeks.
I thought it yesterday and I think it again today. This place is so princely.
It's a wild guess, but I have a feeling you'll think the same tomorrow, too.
My tea has a finer fragrance than whatever they're serving in the tea room here, though, wouldn't you say?
Ah, look who we have here. This is an unexpected pleasure.
Oh, Father! Oh, is this your daddy, Susie? How lovely!
What a charming young lady. And you are? Ah, really? So you're the author of The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, are you?
That's me. I'm Miss Wilson, at your service, sir.
Ain't she a doll?
Susie's been such a wonderful friend to me over the last year, you know.
Well, Miss Wilson, I must say I read your work regularly and with much interest.
Iris actually lives with Mr. Sholmes, you know, Father.
Is that so? Well, perhaps that goes some way to explaining that bright look in your eyes. You wouldn't be smiling so airily if you knew just how bright she is, believe me. Now then, young Naruhodo, it was a pleasure seeing you in action earlier. As an invitee of the symposium, I was allowed to observe from the gallery, after I twisted some arms. And I must say, it was a truly exemplary performance.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Although I'm fairly sure you omitted by Cosima on the end there.
No, please don't misunderstand. It was you who impressed me.
Really?
You didn't miss a step against Asogi, and we all know how capable he is. Really, to have matured into such a fine defense lawyer in just in a year is quite extraordinary.
It's, very kind of you to say so. And really nice to hear.
What I saw in court today confirmed what I'd been hoping for. The favor I mentioned yesterday, Naruhodo, I trust you haven't forgotten.
Oh, no, you did mention something, didn't you? But first, we have something to report, Father.
Of course. Shall we take tea while we discuss matters further?
Wonder where Judge Jigoku has got to.
No. He's new. Well, he's not new here, but it's been a while. Probably sightseeing, I don't know. I'm not one to judge.
Ha! Judge. Father, do you know about the so-called Reaper of the Bailey?
I've heard rumors. Some members of the judiciary explained it all to me yesterday. Of course, when I was a visiting student here in London, the Reaper was yet to emerge.
Right, he didn't appear until after that case when the visiting students had already returned home.
Lord Van Zeeks was in the dock today. That was Barrack, the younger brother of Clint Van Zeeks, I believe.
That's right, and he's known throughout London as the Reaper, as you've heard. But the truth is, it wasn't him behind all those mysterious deaths. It was somebody else.
I see. So what you're saying is there's been a professional killer at work here?
Exactly. Someone by the name of Asa Shin, in fact.
I beg your pardon? Did you say Asa Shin? You mean that Giselle Brett woman who was responsible for killing my great friend?
Oh no! A friend of yours was killed? No, God. Oh no. Oh fuck.
Mikatoba, listen. Okay. Professor Mikatoba, I think perhaps we should discuss this right now.
Because the friend the professor is talking about is Dr. John H. Wilson. And that's not something we want Iris to find out about. Not like this anyway.
I haven't seen Judge Jigoku for a while, have you? Guilty!
But that guilty is still ringing in my ears.
No, now you mention it, I haven't seen him since this morning either. I suppose since the symposium's opening was postponed, he'll have gone to explore the great exhibition.
That reminds me of something you mentioned yesterday. About Judge Jigoku having once been in the dock himself?
Ah, yes, it was all tied up with that accursed trial.
The closed trial of Cosima's father.
Zaisaro was trying to mitigate Genshin's guilt, so he took to the stand to testify. But he got a little carried away and actually managed to break the witness stand. Damn!
Oh my!
He also said some contemptuous words about the British Empire, for which he was charged. Oh dear. Although it's worryingly easy to imagine him doing that. Well, it was all right in the end. He was acquitted and we returned home to Japan together.
Thank goodness.
Ah yes, talking of Seishiro, I have a copy of the photograph we all took together here yesterday. Please.
Hey, it's them. Oh, what a lovely picture.
It certainly seems to shout we've arrived in Britain.
What does this mean? What does this mean? What the fuck, game? What the fuck?
None of us had any idea what was coming when we took that, did we?
No, that's so true.
Me when a seemingly inconspicuous item is added to the court record. What the fuck does this mean? Why?
So you mentioned the favor you'd like to ask me.
Well, this fateful trial that you're fighting. One way or another, it will be over before long. And when it is, I'd like you to accompany me back to Japan. Every fucking time. We can't have an end of these games without somebody going back to Japan, huh? You want me to do
What? Father, what's the meaning of this?
Now, Sasato, you should understand. You've often seen how our courts work firsthand. Japan's judicial system is in its infancy, especially when it comes to defense.
Oh, you mean...
The Supreme Court of the Judicature is in desperate need of a good defense lawyer. As soon as possible. Really, quite urgently, in fact. Really, everybody in this country fucking sucks except for Naruhodo. But I've not even been in London a year yet. I've read all of Sasato's reports. I'm well aware of your extraordinary talents. Having seen you in action with my own eyes earlier today, there's no question. You, Naruhodo, are precisely the man our country needs. Ugh.
So, you'd be leaving then, Runo? But then, what am I supposed to do, Father?
You came here to serve as Asogi's judicial assistant.
Oh yeah, she's supposed to be Kazuma's assistant.
Our government is still in the process of deciding how best to deal with this situation, though. You've always chosen your own path, Susato, and I trust your judgment. In this matter also.
Father?
Please, the pair of you, don't look so downcast. You literally just said I'd like you to come back to Japan. God, not a single discussion with this guy has given me room to breathe, huh? It's merely a suggestion, you understand. A hope, if I'm honest. But I won't force you. All I ask is that you consider it and come to a decision by the time this trial concludes.
Yes. All right.
You won't leave, will you, Runo?
The thought hadn't even crossed my mind. Up until now, I've just been trying to do what I believe to be Kazuma's will. But it turns out that he's still alive, so... where does that leave me? Alright, fine. I've just remembered something. Biscuits! This hotel has the most delicious looking biscuits!
That was rather out of the blue.
Oh, she's doing this deliberately. I think I'll go and see if I can purchase some. I wonder, would you like to come too, Iris? Oh yes! You just try to leave me behind.
So that young girl is called Iris Wilson, is she?
Yes, that's right.
And she's the author of all those adventure stories starring the great detective Sholmes. But the name of the credited author isn't Iris, is it? It's John H. Wilson.
Yes, I know. That's the name of her father, you see?
Her father? Dr. John H. Wilson. I was deeply indebted to the man for all the kindness he showed me during my time in London. That's why I was keen to reciprocate and invite him to the Imperial Yume University 4 years ago.
But he was murdered last year by Giselle Brett.
Why? Why would the Hand of the Reaper stretch all the way to Japan?
Iris knows nothing about that case, but it seems very likely that the victim, Dr. Wilson, was her father.
Well, I can't say that we ever spoke about his family, so I don't know if he had a daughter or not. But I think I can say with some certainty, he was never the great detective's partner.
So it could have been another Dr. Wilson, you think?
Well, John and Wilson are both common names after all. Still, it's probably best not to mention this to the young lady until we can be sure.
That's what we thought, yes.
We're back with cinnamon biscuits. Oh, they smell delicious, Iris. I think cinnamon will go very well with the tea they serve here, don't you, Susie? Yes, I'm sure you're right, Iris.
Well, if you'll excuse me now. I need to telegram government ministers and the Japanese police with this information about Asashin.
Of course, Father. Thank you.
I look forward to next month's installment, Miss Wilson.
Oh, good! And please do come to Baker Street sometime, won't you? We'd love to entertain you.
I would be delighted. The best of luck for tomorrow, Naruhodo. And give my suggestion your full consideration, won't you?
Yes, I will. Going back home? Ba-da-ba-ba. Oh, fuck. You know, Cosmo-sama's always meant a great deal to my father. I'm sure he'd love the chance to meet with him and talk to him about all of this. Yes, no doubt. Asashin. Of course, it's so obvious.
How could I have neglected to consider the possibility before now? Mr. Sholmes?
Hurley, where have you been?
Why, I joined you all for tea, of course. What an extraordinary question.
I didn't even notice you at all.
No matter, no matter. Anyway, to more pressing concerns, Mr. Naruhodo.
Oh, yes?
I must dispatch a telegram to your country at once. It is a matter of much urgency. To Japan, you mean? Tell me, to whom can I entrust the task? Quickly now, who?
My father has just now left to send a telegram to the Imperial Police Bureau of Japan himself.
I see. Well, he looked reliable enough for a bearded fellow.
I don't think father's sports could be considered a beard, Mr. Sholmes.
Ah, there's not a moment to lose. Kindly ask your trusty unshaven father to see Mrs. Sent.
I will, but what is it?
No questions at this time, if you please, Mrs. Sato. All we can do is pray that for once, my deduction is awry.
Doesn't that imply your deductions are normally correct, Mr. Sholmes, which isn't
Now then! You may be surprised to learn that I'm a very busy man. I certainly have no time to hide behind settees and eavesdrop on other people's conversations.
So that's what joining us for tea meant?
I leave the sending of this in your capable hands then, my dear fellows.
Well, wait a minute, Mr. Sholmes! He just sort of ran off, didn't he? At quite a pace.
And left the unpaid bill for his tea behind, too. Sholmes' tea bill has been added to the court record. What?
I must catch up with father at the telegraph office at once. And I'll run and call us a cab straight away.
Whoosh. And there was me thinking everyone would be clamoring to pay Mr. Sholmes' bill.
Okie dokie.
Where to now? Are you in?
Oh, timestamp.
This is the ward where Mr. Vigil was brought, apparently. To be frank, I'm a little worried about seeing him again. Hey. Ah, the lawyer. Hello again. Are you feeling better now, Vigil? Yes, thank you. Somewhat better.
I'm so sorry to have caused you to... I mean, it was because of me. If I hadn't exposed your secret and forced you to remember things you'd obviously tried to forget.
The prosecutor was here until a few moments ago, too. You just missed him.
Oh, Cosmo beat us to it.
He said much the same as you. He was very apologetic. But the truth is, I brought this all upon myself.
Please, don't think like that.
Keeping it from Evie, my wife, all these years, I've carried such a sense of guilt. But that's not the worst of it. Over time, I obviously came to deceive myself as well.
You mean about your dismissal?
Looking back now, I'm beginning to think that perhaps Inspector Gregson didn't stumble across me by accident after all. I mean, he compensated me so generously for acting as his stand-in. He was clearly concerned for my well-being and doing what he could to help.
So perhaps Gregson knew exactly what had become of Mr. Vigil all along then.
I'm sure this is just... You're missing an S there. I'm sure this is just deserts for 10 years of lies and deception, but...
It wasn't me that helped the professor escape 10 years ago. It wasn't me. I swear it. I swear it's true.
Oh, Mr. Vigil.
I'm sure you'd rather not dredge up even more from your past at this time, but if possible, could you tell us exactly what really happened? I want to. I need to get all this off my chest.
I just want someone to tell me what I should have done.
Well, Inspector Gregson was obviously engaged in a special operation of some sort. He was investigating something that even Scotland Yard couldn't know about. Details of the Reaper's marks, yes. It was when he had to carry out those investigations that I would take his identification and impersonate him. You'd pretend to be the inspector and carry out investigations on his behalf?
Oh no, never! A common street peddler couldn't possibly carry out a proper police investigation. Oh yeah, Finding Paradise is cheap right now. I nabbed that shit. I'll be sure to update when I finally play it if it's as good as To the Moon, and if it makes me cry like a bitch as much. All I would do is go to the specified location and make a little hoo-ha. I was a little funny man, you see. Just doing a little bit of goofs and gaffs. Just something to leave an impression. So everyone there would think a detective called Gregson was here.
So, that's what you were doing on the day prior to the incident?
Yes, he asked me to make an appearance at the park on Lime Street for the Red-Headed League event. So as usual, I flashed the inspector's identification around and was very vocal about my presence.
But then you were taken prisoner by those red-headed fraudsters.
Yes, So you would always make a point of showing Gregson's identification and generally being loud? That's what the inspector asked me to do, yes.
That's one way of becoming a legendary detective, I suppose. Not a good one, though.
And as you know, I suffered this bruising around my neck at their hands. But the following day, they kept their word and released me. Without returning the inspector's identification to you, however. We had arranged to meet in the Fresno Street room at 5 that day so I could report back to the inspector. But at the agreed time, that's when I heard the gunshot. It was at midnight on the 17th of June 10 years ago. That was the time scheduled for the execution.
But the professor's execution never actually took place, did it?
Or rather, the execution itself must have been used to effect the plan of escape.
I hardly dare to imagine what a chilling plan it was. Barclay was renowned for being the highest security prison in the country. Everything that went in or out of the place was searched multiple times. But there was one notable exception. Or rather, one notable loophole. Something that was never questioned. I have a feeling that I know what that loophole was now. The coffins into which the bodies of the executed convicts were placed, correct? Yes. Once the coroner had confirmed the death of a condemned convict, the body was taken in its coffin for immediate burial in Lowgate Cemetery just behind the prison. The chief warder first had to sign the necessary papers. And after that, no member of the staff was permitted to touch the coffin containing the body again. When executions took place, only the executioner and the coroner were permitted inside this chamber. I would wait in the adjacent room for word that the condemned convict was dead. On that occasion, once I had that confirmation, I went into the mortuary to find a lone coffin, as usual. The procedure that I would sign the paperwork having checked the coffin, then nail it shut. But for some reason that day, the coffin was already nailed shut. No! I didn't think anything of it at the time. I assumed that my deputy must have checked the coffin and nailed it shut before I arrived.
So, you mean the coffin contained...
Yes, I can only imagine that Asogi, having escaped his execution somehow, was alive inside the coffin. The coffin was then taken out through the main gates and deposited in Lowgate Cemetery. Presumably there wouldn't have been enough air inside to breathe for long. So in the early hours following the burial, somebody dug up the coffin again to set Genshin free. But in the end, he was fatally shot in the graveyard anyway. What on earth really happened in Lowgate Cemetery that night, I wonder? I'm afraid I really don't know. All I can say with certainty are two things. Asogi couldn't possibly have escaped that way without someone helping... without help from somebody working in the prison. And that somebody was not me. Obviously you knew the man then? The professor, I mean. Genshin Asogi. Yes, I remember him well, in fact. Would you mind telling us what you know? Well, having been condemned to death as he was, any contact I had with the man was short, obviously. After that trial, which carried out behind closed doors, attended only by elite members of the judiciary, we called for his execution to be carried out at the earliest possible opportunity. The outcome of the trial was set from the beginning, wasn't it? It was a time of delicate diplomacy, when Britain and Japan were in the process of signing an important treaty. That meant that this potentially destabilizing case had to be dealt with swiftly and discreetly. The man had less than a week in total, and as I was the chief warder, I oversaw his short stay in the cells until his final hour. I remember being struck deeply by his noble character and incredible resilience. What do you mean exactly? He was a killer of many men, but he was always quiet and polite. He was a gentleman and a man of intellect. I would expect nothing less than gentlemanly of somebody with a professor title. In fact, I couldn't bring myself to believe what he'd done, so I asked him one day. Those 5 members of the aristocracy whose lives were taken, were you really responsible? I'm guilty of the unforgivable crime of ending another human's life, yes. The following day, the closed trial took place, and the verdict was no surprise. Guilty. That night, when he was brought back to his cell, I saw something. Something unusual.
Something unusual? What?
The last will and testament of Genshin Asogi.
Oh shit.
As I said, it was on the night As I said, it was on the night following his trial, after he'd been found guilty. I was doing the rounds of the cells, and when I looked into Asogi's, I noticed that he seemed to have a sheet of paper in his hand.
Ah, his last will and testament then. Yeah.
As soon as he noticed me, he hurriedly shoved it behind his back.
But why'd you find that so... You know, isn't it normal for a man to pen a will when he knows his death is nigh?
Yes, that's true, but there are special conditions to Asogi's incarceration, you see.
What sort of conditions?
Well, even though it was held in a cell designed for condemned inmates, he was allowed to keep his personal effects with him, with one exception.
Really? He was allowed his things? That is unusual, certainly.
Of course, he'd been convicted of killing 5 members of the aristocracy. At the time, he was a guest in our country from the Empire of Japan. The powers that be were determined that his final days shouldn't be needlessly uncomfortable.
And what was the exception you mentioned to the personal effects he was allowed?
That's the point. He wasn't permitted to have writing materials. Specifically, no pens or paper.
So, he was prevented from leaving any written record of what had happened to him?
Yes, that was the long and short of it. I've no idea where he obtained the paper. Any writing materials would have been confiscated from him upon his incarceration. As I said, he hid the paper behind his back, and then he pleaded with me. What did you just hide behind your back? Please, please turn a blind eye. This is my lifeline. But you know it's against the rules. You're the only person who's seen. If you just agree to keep quiet. All right then, but what's on that paper? A last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now. How can a will be a weapon? So I decided to pretend I'd seen nothing, and I let him keep his will. But then later, it just seemed to vanish without trace.
What do you mean it vanished?
It would seem that that isn't the end of the story of this mysterious will. I was the only person who saw Asogi's will, but somehow it disappeared? It was after Asogi's execution.
Which was actually an elaborate jailbreak.
The warders gathered up Asogi's possessions that were in his cell, and they were all sent back to his family home in Japan, you see. It's a poor Kazuma-sama.
And you're saying it wasn't anywhere to be found among his personal effects? The will, I mean.
That's right, though I didn't search through them myself. But Governor Caden was livid. He was screaming. Can I have disappeared completely? That doesn't quite make sense though, does it? In what way?
Well, we'd understood that only Mr. Vigil was aware of the will's existence. In which case, how did the prison governor know to look for it?
Oh yeah, you're right.
I really don't know how he knew, but it certainly seemed as though he knew of the will's existence from the outset. Well, he didn't refer to it as a will. What he said was, the Asogi Papers.
The Asogi Papers?
I really can't tell you anything of the subsequent events. Because, well, of what happened. Your dismissal, and the way you blocked it all from your memory. I've forgotten all this until today. I don't suppose it's relevant to the case, though. Well, anyway, thank you very much for sharing it with us, Mr. Vigil. We're very grateful.
Just a good lad.
I'm afraid there's really little more I can tell you. My wife Evie will be here shortly, so I do hope I don't appear rude, but...
No, not at all. Thank you again.
But what will become of you now?
Well, impersonating a police officer is a criminal offense, of course. I imagine that once I'm fully recovered, I shall be arrested. I'm so sorry. Don't be, please. This was all my own doing. I always knew this day would come. Well, I wish you well. Goodbye, Mr. Vigil.
Before you go, there's just one thing. Oh, yes? What is it?
The Asogi Papers. I'd be very grateful if you made no mention of the things I told you about them.
Presumably for some good reason.
It's my understanding that their very existence is a closely guarded secret. It became known that I had remembered. Well, it could be rather troublesome, I think.
I understand.
Some sort of will that Genshin Asogi penned just before his death, which the man himself claimed was his last weapon. I wonder, perhaps it had something to do with his plan to escape. If there's anybody who might know more about a document that Cosmo's father left behind,
It would be Mr. Vigil's governor. Then we know precisely where we must go. Back to Barclay Prison.
oh, poor Vigil.
All right, let's go to the governor's office.
Oh, back again, are ya?
Yes. Hello.
I've heard all about your investigations. I read the report just now. You found them, eh? Vigil.
Yes, luckily.
Well, anywho, the laddie doesn't work here no more, so your case is not to do with Barkley. I wouldn't like you to get the wrong idea about that.
Of course. Mr. Vigil stopped working here 10 years ago now, so...
Yes, we've seen his dismissal notice, haven't we? He was given the chop.
Aye, Kimmer, you can very well. So, how about the wee handcuff biscuit, eh?
Oh, they really are like little handcuffs. And hard as irons, too.
So, what brought you down here today?
Well, there's something else we'd like to ask you about, actually.
Is that so?
We believe there might have been a document that disappeared from Genjin Asogi's cell. I think it's been called the Asogi Papers or something?
Didn't know say, Gregson's death is not to do with things that might have happened at Barkley. Leave the past in the past, laddie. Let's not footer about with irrelevant details.
His expressions changed completely. Has it? I mean, his motions have, but we're clearly onto something here.
The murderer's boxed execution and the whole miserable escape. They were Barclay's darkest hour, aye. A shocking embarrassment.
Because the convict had a collaborator on the prison staff, you mean?
Aye, for shame. The coroner who confirmed the death of the man after his execution, Courtney Scythe, and my chief warder at the time, Vigil, who was in charge of the whole affair.
Mr. Vigil says he didn't know anything about it.
The rascal wouldn't say otherwise, eh? More handcuffs?
Oh, how could I say no? You can never have too much iron in your diet.
When Mr. Vigil was handed his dismissal notice as a result of what had happened, he was so despairing he jumped out of your office window, didn't he?
I didn't like to say, but that's just Vigil trying to get out of it. Do you not think he wouldn't have jumped from the shock of his crimes being exposed, eh? I do.
You wouldn't say otherwise, though, would you?
Of course I can show no responsibility myself. I should never have let him deceive me. Actually, there's barely anybody that kens what went on at the time now. Well, Gregson haven't been murdered and Dr. Scythe forbidden from having any visitors.
No visitors? Someone obviously doesn't want her giving anything away.
Well, we're not going home empty-handed.
And I would not dream of sending you packing without, And I would not dream of sending you packing without, Grimmer. Here, have a handcuff or two.
Oh, well, it would be rude to say no. Wouldn't want to become anemic.
I suppose if there's anybody who might still ken about what happened back then, it'd be that last from the forensic division, Maria Gori.
Maria Gori?
Aye, Scythe's daughter. She didn't have no more, just the one. But the wee bairns followed in her mom's footsteps. You didn't ever see her without a scalpel in her hand.
Ah!
Mama, what's this?
Duh! Where did she spring from? And did she just call the doctor Mama? Dr. Scythe's daughter, Maria Gori. We could do with talking to her. Gori. So, she's Dr. Scythe's daughter, but her surname is Gori.
Aye, there's some family history, I'm sure, but I didn't ken the ins and outs of it. She grew up watching her mom working with the bodies of folks who died in strange circumstances, and decided to do the same with her own life. I can understand it myself.
Perhaps she was driven by a deep respect for her mother.
Perhaps. Anywho, she was in charge of Gregson's autopsy, I believe.
Right, and the coroner responsible for his incomplete report.
Someone told me once that the wee lassie always loved her mom's stories about cutting up bodies. There's even a rumor that she used to listen to something. What did that say? Listen to the funeral march as a lullaby. Oh, she's fucked.
Well, then perhaps her mother might have told her about the autopsy from the case 10 years ago.
I'd say there's a fighting chance at least, eh? After all, that was a life-changing case for all of us.
We really need to speak with Miss Gory herself about this, I think. Well, I thank you very much.
I'm not happy about any part of this. It took years for Londoners to finally get the whole professor business. Yeah. Can you not give up on this, laddie? Stop asking pointless questions.
I'm sorry. I don't like dredging up these painful memories for everyone.
Can you not just stay away, no? Leave me alone and then I come back here, eh?
Sorry, but we still have to talk about the Asogi papers.
What do you come to care about that, laddie? There's not many folk around here, even in the prison, who's heard of those papers.
Well, I can't tell what Mr. Vigil told me.
I'm afraid our sources must remain confidential, sir.
We've been led to believe the papers are actually a last will and testament. Is that right? The professors are rather Genshin Asogis.
Aye, that's right. You're well informed, Jimmy.
Yeah, we went over this last time.
Oh, is that the end of the silent treatment? But then after the convict's execution, it mysteriously vanished from his cell, didn't it?
Hey, ever no, you're a daft cock there. I think you didn't quite get your facts straight. It was there in the cell, exactly when it should have been.
Oh, now we heard elsewhere.
Let me just have a wee look around in here. I'm sure I can find it. Aye, here we are. See?
The last will and testament of Genshin Asogi, written with a calligraphy brush.
Of course, I cannot read a word of those Japanese squiggles. But the mind it says he leaves all his worldly possessions to his son back in his homeland.
Yes, that's correct. That's the gist of it.
So these are the Asogi papers.
Aye, of course they are. Papers written by Asogi, no doubt about it. There's no mystery here, laddie. That's your lot. After all the stramash that sliced her of an execution, we sent the man's possessions back to his clan in Japan, and that was the end of it.
I think we ought to make a record of this, Mr. Naruhodo, just in case.
Alright, apparently Mr. Asogi described it as the only weapon I have left.
One thing before you go your own way, Mr. Naruhodo.
Oh, yes?
Those papers are not to do with Gregson's death. I prefer it if you did not make no mention of them outside his office. Or rather, I would not just prefer it. Consider it an order from the highest levels of our government, eh?
I understand. Where do we go?
Is Kazuma in? Is he here?
Oh, timestamp. Oh, he's here.
Kazuma?
I thought that wouldn't be long before you paid me a visit, Ryunosuke. I was right about what I said, wasn't I?
Sorry?
That you have all the makings of a great defense lawyer.
Well, I always believed that you'd fulfill your dream of advocating in the British courts. I just never imagined for 1 second it would be as a prosecutor.
Seeing you stand in a foreign courtroom so gallantly realizing your dream, Kazuma-sama, I'm truly happy for you.
And I am truly thankful to you, Judicial Assistant Mikotoba. Ryunosuke, I always thought it would be fun for you and I to shake up the British legal system a little together. It isn't quite how I envisaged it, but I suppose it's just another twist of fate. I've learned a lot of things during my time in London. About how Susato-san's father was himself a visiting student once here, along with Judge Jigoku. And about what happened with your father. And you'll have no difficulty understanding why I had no choice. Why I had to find a way to get to Britain as a visiting student myself. I want to hear it from you, Kazuma. As you wish, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Alright, let's do a little talking. Actually, wait, first. You want to take a look at your father's last will and testament?
Kazuma, what do you make of this?
There's only one place where defense lawyers and prosecutors should discuss evidence, the courtroom. So it seems you're still confused by a situation. That's what I make of it.
I get the feeling my friend's always going to have the edge over me, isn't he?
Damn, okay. I guess not then. Alright, I should probably read this though. I, Genshin Asogi, hereby request that upon my death, any and all material possessions and wealth belonging to me in London be delivered to my son, Cosmo Asogi, in the Empire of Japan. It is with deep sadness I accept my fate in this foreign land, in the knowledge I will never see my homeland or family again, but I regret nothing about my chosen path. Shit, damn. Alright. Well, let's talk.
It's getting on for a year now, since what happened on the SS Burya. We were heading across the oceans from Japan to Great Britain when a bizarre series of coincidences led to those tragic events. I thought I'd lost my best friend forever. I must have been unconscious for a long time. When I awoke, I was lying on a bed. It was a narrow little room. There was a posy of flowers by the pillow. It took me a little while to realize I was in the cabin of a ship. I slipped out of the room and headed up onto the deck.
Were you already suffering from amnesia at that point?
Yes, I didn't know what happened or where I was. There was just this voice in my head. You have something you have to do, something no one else can know about. Go to Great Britain. Your task awaits you there. It was a calling I couldn't ignore. It compelled me relentlessly. Out on deck, I saw that I was on a huge steamship and we were docked in a large port.
It must have been in Hong Kong.
Yes, it must have been, presumably just before they were due to carry your body off the ship. I had no idea of the situation, but I did have the feeling that this was in some way my last chance. So I concealed myself among the disembarking passengers and went ashore. And I disappeared into the crowded streets of that foreign port city, so I could plan my onward journey to Great Britain. Just under a year ago, with all my past memories lost to me, I was left behind in Hong Kong. Everything was foreign to me. The sights, the sounds, the smells. My head reeled. I was truly at a loss. I realized now that I had escaped as a dead man, with nothing but the clothes on my back. No money, of course.
Oh, how terrifying for you.
Luckily, though, I had 2 feathers in my cap, one being your knowledge of English, I suppose. That's right, and on the back of that I was able to pick up some work as a deckhand on a cargo ship. Eventually, after calling at countless ports, I finally arrived at Dover. It's been some 3 months ago now. Your formidable tenacity of purpose showing itself again. I mean, the man had lost his memory and literally nothing to his name, but he still had to make his way to London on the opposite side of the world. Of course, I had no idea why I'd moved heaven and earth to get there at that point.
So how did you end up becoming Lord Van Zeek's apprentice then?
That can only be an extraordinary stroke of luck, really. You see, I was stopped at the border because I had no papers. They took me straight to Scotland Yard. And by sheer coincidence, Lord Strongheart was there to attend the meeting. That's when the second feather in my cap came into play.
Would that have been your knowledge of the law?
Yes, exactly. Lord Strongheart was curious about an Easterner with intimate knowledge of British law. He took me back with him to the Supreme Court and assigned me to the prosecutor's office. And then 9 days ago, you finally got your memory back after a trial involving Drebber. Yes, I did.
So tell me about your daddy.
Ever since I first met you at Yume, you talked about your dream. Mark my words, Ryunosuke. I'll be chosen as a visiting student and make my way to Great Britain someday. Did you know the entire time about what happened to your father here? 16 years ago.
Aw, little baby. When my father left on that exciting trip to Great Britain, I was just a boy. We took a photograph together the day before his departure. It's my last memory of him. What I remember mostly about my father is his unswerving sense of justice. 6 years after he left, a gentleman called at our family home. He told me that Genshin, my father, had been taken ill in England and passed away. It was Professor Mikotoba, your father, Susato-san.
Oh my!
Ever since then, the professor was very good to me. He even helped to fund my university education at Yume. I'll be forever in his debt. But nevertheless, I just couldn't bring myself to believe what he'd told me.
Oh.
Then one day, a letter arrived from our house from Britain. There was no indication of the sender, so I opened it, assuming it was from an old acquaintance of my father. What I read in that letter changed my entire life.
What did it say?
It said that my father had been a mass murderer, and the writer cursed the Asogi name.
Oh no!
As a result of that letter, I found out what had been hidden from me all those years. Presumably, the letter was sent from a relative of one of the victims.
If whoever it was had been a member of the judiciary, he could have been present at the closed trial.
The letter revealed that my father had been sentenced to death, executed for being a killer.
I'm so sorry you had to find out that way.
I imagine that the British government did its very best to silence whoever sent that letter. But someone who knew the truth and couldn't bear the resentment was always going to be a problem.
But still, it could have been written by anyone. Why would you believe such a thing?
There was a newspaper cutting included with a letter. It was the first I'd ever heard of the professor and his terrible killing spree.
Well, what did my father have to say about the letter?
I couldn't bring myself to show it to him.
Why not?
Because he deliberately concealed the truth from me by telling my father was taken by a fatal illness. That couldn't have been easy for him, and he'd done it out of consideration for my feelings. So instead, I showed the letter to Judge Jigoku. To the other visiting student. He faltered for the briefest of moments, but then he just laughed the letter off. In that moment, I saw it on his face. He was undeniably shocked, shaken momentarily, before recovering his poise. A year later, my bereaved mother succumbed to a strain of grief, and she too passed away. That's when I made up my mind that one day, without fail, I would cross the seas to Britain and seek the truth for myself. The truth about my father, Genshin Asogi. I wouldn't let anyone stand in my way.
Oh, Kazuma-sama.
What we learned today in court turned things completely on their head.
It was an impressive piece of lawyering, Ryunosuke Naruhodo.
Lord Van Zeeks isn't the Reaper, you know.
I almost don't want to believe it myself, but it turns out that Inspector Gregson himself, the victim, was...
It's clear the Inspector was behind the Reaper's activity all along.
What? You mean you knew?
The real question is, who's been giving orders to the Inspector? Yes, Barrack Van Zeeks is the real Reaper. And I know that 10 years ago it was him who decided my father must be a mass murderer and sent him to his grave.
No, he was merely seeing that justice was done as the law dictates. He's not to blame. He's to blame for other things, but not that.
Ultimately, it's people who condemn people. The law is just the tool they use to do it. And when a man condemns another, he must take responsibility for his actions. Of course he must. But I know for certain that my father would never have taken another man's life.
Kazuma.
On the contrary, my father's life was taken by the Reaper. But... Are you sure you've asked everything we need to... Okay, I guess that's a cue. Hey, look at your badge.
Kazuma, this is your armband.
Actually, I think it's yours now.
Sorry?
You're a defense lawyer. You have a talent for it. I've always known that you would. And now you've chosen to take that path in life. As your friend, I couldn't be happier for you.
Kazuma.
So you keep hold of that. Besides, I'm a prosecutor now. That armband would have no meaning for me.
Well, if you're sure, thank you, my friend.
Shit, damn.
What else do we have that relates to the case that isn't that, I guess?
Let me get okay now. One more time? No? Okay. I don't know. I'm just gonna move, I guess. Suppose it's a gated pass on your legs, it's your best friend. Nah. What to do now? We already checked in with Lord Chief. So...
Have you examined anything in that room? Oh, right, we can examine shit now that he's here. Right. That's true. What the? It's a scale model of the crime scene.
Oh, yeah, I realized that. Does the prosecution office make a model of the scene for every case?
Apparently so. Sometimes it helps to visualize things better and notice things you hadn't spotted before. Actually, the miniature notice board is my work. Be honest, you enjoyed making that. Alright, I mean, we know he doesn't really have much to say about the barrels. Do you know who the man in the portrait is? Why would I?
What? But you're Lord Van Zeek's apprentice!
Yes, apprentice, not friend. During the time I was suffering from amnesia, I didn't even notice that picture.
Oh, really? I mean, it's not the smallest picture.
I wouldn't have the first idea what the man decorates his office with. Well, you're in it now, so you know.
Maybe look at it, I don't know.
There's Lord Van Zeek's incredibly stylish desk. It's not my style, though. No, I noticed you've been working on that little table on the floor, kneeling down Size's style. I thought it was some kind of punishment set up by Lord Van Zeek's when I first saw it. I find it the most comfortable way to work. I can't do it. After a couple of minutes of sitting with my legs folded under me, I start to go tingly. Don't exaggerate, Ryanosuke. We both know you can't even manage a minute. Lord Van Zeek's fine collection of hallowed chalices and bottles, all neatly lined up. Yes, he's extremely particular about all that. He has a strict regime for everything, from the storage of the casks to the bottling of their contents. Gosh, you must be having a really tough time of it being his apprentice. Actually, no. Oh? He's so particular about it all, he refuses to let anybody else touch any of it. So it's been quite easy for me, in fact. Talk about weird. Alright, I don't know, it doesn't feel like there's anything else of note in here, so let's move out. Oh, Doggle, don't make it weird. Anyway. Nope. Actually, wait, maybe. What's that? Ah, it's just something I was hoping to ask your opinion on, that's all. It's a serious crime for the defense to attempt to extract information from the prosecution by illegal means. I think we have more of a defense and client relationship now, don't we? No response? Okay, bye. He's just having a bad day. We never went to the back to the room, did we? Please don't tell anybody about these papers. Proceed to show it to literally everyone. Look. Using a candle as a timer device. Very ingenious, I must say.
Yes, the culprit arranges that the firecracker would be set off at 5 o'clock and then left.
So that a loud bang was heard precisely the moment Lord Van Zeek's arrived, yes. If only you hadn't picked up that gun from the floor.
Something you probably told yourself about once upon a time, I imagine.
Yes, I've learned that lesson by bitter experience. I would have turned and run a mile for sure.
Which may not have done you any favors either.
If it turns out that Gregson didn't actually die here at all, where on earth could he have been killed?
Well, one way or another, we must find out, for the inspector's sake.
You know, you look awfully pale again today.
You today, Mr. Naruhodo.
Sorry, when I started thinking it all through, I conjured up some horrible images in my mind.
Your imagination is the culprit here, then. Most certainly guilty.
The photograph of Miss Vigil.
Realizing the identity of this lady was a very great clue to exposing Mr. Gossip's true identity. He obviously loves his wife very dearly, which is why he couldn't tell her the truth.
The transformation was incredible, wasn't it? From that big twisted lip.
Yeah, he went to extraordinary efforts to play the part of Hugh Boone convincingly. Although it didn't really seem like it was much of an effort to me. Now you say it, I have to agree.
It's almost as if that was Mr. Vigil's true character.
People really are hard to fathom at times.
But
There are details of cases stretching back 10 years. He has a history of Lord Van Zeek's defeats in court. I don't think that's an appropriate description. Although, when you consider everything on the board, it's certainly true that all these people had a background of dubious dealings. And in the end, of course, the board itself concealed the inspector's own death. Oh my, it really doesn't bear thinking about.
where is Gina? Where is Gina? Hey, Hey, Vigil.
Well, at least he seems to be on the mend. You know, his disguise Mr. Gossip was really quite masterful, wasn't it?
Can't remember anything about it except the floppy lip, though.
I imagine not even his wife would have recognized him. Perhaps, but he'd really have to take it quite so far.
Okay, we can't even talk to him now. That's fine. Okay, so let's see. Nobody's here. Well, actually, we never checked if nobody was here. Okay, nobody's here. Nobody's here, nobody's here, nobody's here. Technically, the governor's still in, but I don't know if he has anything to say still. Van Zeek's is in, but I don't know if we have anything for him. Nobody here, nobody here. And Cosmo's here, but it said that we haven't asked everything we need to there.
In some ways, this place rather seems to suit Lord Van Zeek. Oh dear, did I say that out loud?
You know, I never really stopped to appreciate the little flavor text they add on these little screens. It's good. Decorations in here in the governor's face, they're as terrifying as each other.
What a grand face. Father certainly seems to be enjoying relaxing in this luxuriant atmosphere. I always feel so nervous here. I should love to ask if I should borrow some books, but I just can't.
Wherever we go, the great detective's living room is always full of enigmatic marvels. Alright, well, I guess considering what they're pointing me at here, should I just go down the list or something, or what? I was shocked when I found out they were related to the case. The Redheaded League, I mean. Wait, for real? There's actually unique text for this? Personally, it wasn't their plan to swindle everyone that surprised me. It was the fact that so many red-headed people gathered from all over London that day. A certain great detective being among them. I expect those two are in their cells as we speak, wishing they never dreamt up their little plan. Or maybe they're busy plotting their next one.
Oh, just flavor text. Okay, neat.
The candelabra. Hey, put this on for me. No? Okay. Well, I am at a bit of a dead end right now. We can't see Cosmo in the wig. Yeah.
So no, probably not. No. We couldn't even show him the file, so I doubt we'd be able to show him anything that would give that. No.
Eh? The Reaper. At last I get to take my revenge. Cosmo? Lord Van Zeek isn't responsible for your father's death. And he's not the Reaper. He's the defendant and deserving of a fair trial. You mean like the one my father had? It's a closed trial now, too. The conditions are exactly as they were 10 years ago. If it ruffles some feathers, I have a plan to show that man for what he really is.
Cosmo.
Damn, there really is like some good like flavor text between things, huh? I mean, here and there. Damn. Hey, do you know anything? Actually, wait, yeah. Do you know anything about Maria Gori? This came up in the trial, didn't it? As something a little dubious, I mean. The fact that no time of death was recorded on Inspector Gregson's autopsy report. Yes, there were some unexpected turns in the courtroom earlier. The suggestion you came up with certainly took everyone by surprise. The idea that the victim died the previous day at some other location is quite something. Well, considering when the pocket watch stopped and the scorch marks on the candle, it's certainly a distinct possibility. If you haven't seen the scene, both point to it. I thought we proved the pocket watch just sort of stops on its own. It just does that. To be honest, it bothered me too. So I paid a visit to the autopsy room earlier. The coroner responsible wasn't there, but I got a name. It's Dr. Gory.
If it wouldn't trouble you, Kazuma-sama, we'd very much like to speak with the coroner too.
Of course. The last thing I want is for anything to be brushed under the carpet. Scotland Yard's autopsy laboratory is behind Lowgate Cemetery. Lowgate by Barclay Prison, you mean? Ah, you know it, do you? The prison where my father was incarcerated and robbed of his life.
Kazuma-sama.
Well, thank you. We'll pay a visit to the laboratory later today. Oh, hey, that was it. That was what I needed to do. Yeah! Ryunosuke, I want to thank you. What for? For this. You safeguard the soul of the Asogi clan. Well, it is a famous sword that's been in your family for generations. My only slight regret is I never got the chance to draw it before I returned it to you. Karama is said to have been forged by a master swordsmith during the Sengoku Warring States period. I come from a long lineage of warriors, many of whom were expert swordsmen.
Well, then you're a chip off the old block, I'd say.
This blade, Karama, is a symbol of the Asogi clan's honor and might. Apparently one of my father's apprentices even took the blade's name for a surname.
Really? Karama. It does sound formidable, that's for sure.
16 years ago, when my father was a visiting student here in London, he had this sword forever at his side. Which is why it means so much to me that I have it by my side again now too. Karma. Damn, are you telling me that Manfred von Karma's ancestor was a sword? And that is all thanks to you.
It was an honor. Although, do you really need to have two swords by your side at all times?
Yes.
Okay. You mean I can't just have that other one?
No.
It just feels weird to be in court without a sword.
Ryunosuke.
Okay, whatever.
Now I have preparations to make for tomorrow. Perhaps I said a little too much.
Kazuma, you've changed.
No, Ryunosuke, I haven't changed at all. It's you who's changed. I can completely understand your resentment of Lord Van Zeek's given what happened. But the fact is, those events in this case are, well, unrelated. Is that what you want to say? How can you be so sure? What do you mean? Never mind. That man is the Reaper. And it's for that reason that the inspector was killed. I actually didn't even realize he has two fucking swords. It's kind of goofy when you realize it, yeah? Like, one is fine. Two is a bit like... I'm going to prove as much in court tomorrow. By whatever means necessary. I can't let you do that, Kazuma. Can't let you do that stuff. I know you'll do what you have to as a lawyer, but I'm sure I don't need to tell you that I won't be taking any prisoners in the courtroom. I would expect nothing less. Until tomorrow, then, in the Old Bailey. Forensic laboratory, let's go! Back to the place with the spooky skeletons and the... I didn't even notice all the plushies last time. This place really is creepy, isn't it?
Well, being a dead room, it's probably full of the spirits of the dissected. But actually, there's a rather pleasant scent of roses in the air. Well, being a dead room, the coroner probably needs a bold scent like that to mask the odor of death.
Iris, do you think we could change the subject? Oh, Iris has been here. She's just been very quiet. She was here earlier, but...
What was that?
Dr. Gory? Why do you have that, I want to say, butcher's knife? Alongside that scalpel?
What?
The noise before.
I was sharpening my tools. I'd be dead meat if I didn't keep a perfectly keen edge on them.
Right.
Now, they wouldn't have the coroner be the culprit twice in a row, would they?
No, they wouldn't.
When following the collagen fibers in the dermis, an expertly sharpened scalpel cuts like cheese. Would you like a demonstration?
Oh, yes, please. I'd love to see.
Iris!
Then, I think you'll do nicely.
Huh? No, I wouldn't do nicely at all. I mean, maybe some other time.
Was that a tut?
No, it was a tisk. Well, we came here to ask questions, so... we have actually met before. I'm a lawyer, if you remember.
You're not dead yet.
What?
So Mama said I wasn't to cut you open. She's so strict about things like that.
Well, good. Dr. Scythe has some scruples, at least.
Oh, dear. It looks like he's not interested in talking to us, for the time being anyway.
For the time being? You mean until we die? I hope that's a way off. Sorry, but I wasn't planning on dying anytime soon. Surely there's some less drastic way of making her listen.
All right, let's present the court record.
Dr. Gory, we actually came here to ask you about this.
He was very good.
Good? Sorry?
His skin didn't snag my blade once, and very little mess. His joints dislocated easily, and his muscle tissue was a pleasure to work with.
We can skip those details! But there is one thing about the report that's caught my attention. You don't seem to have recorded a time of death.
That's not my fault.
Oh, that made me jump.
Please, tell us what happened.
So, why doesn't this autopsy report include the victim's time of death then? It's really the most crucial detail.
I was told not to write it.
What? By who?
Mail Strongheart, the Lord Chief Justice. He came here.
Huh. Lord Strongheart came? Don't take that out of context, people.
He said that from the witness statements about the gunshot and the other evidence, it was obvious. The man clearly died at 5 p.m. on the 1st of November, when the gunshot was heard.
But that's not the time of death you wrote on the report. You didn't write anything. Was there some reason you didn't include it?
Dr. Gory, if you're hiding something under Lord Strongheart's instructions, then sooner or later you're going to go the same way as your mother.
You take that back. My mother was a saint. I mean, give it here then.
What's he scribbling so furiously?
There.
You've written...
What? What's she written? Tell us.
Indeterminate.
But...
An accurate estimation of the time of death is not possible.
What?
What do you mean by that? What was the time of death indeterminate?
When the specimen was brought in, it was still fresh, so the time of death could easily have been coincided when the gunshot was heard.
But there's one small discrepancy. Updated autopsy report, except it actually has a reason. And it's the defense this time. We get to do it instead of the prosecution. Oh, baby!
What discrepancy? There was some fried fish in the pocket of the specimen's overcoat.
Yeah, that's to be expected.
And that fish had started to rot.
Ugh.
What? If the victim liked fried fish, he presumably liked to eat it before it went off.
Well, yeah. What are you really trying to say?
It's possible someone tried to manipulate the apparent time of death.
Manipulate the... Is that even possible to do?
Theoretically, if you were to chill the body in ice, you could delay the onset of putrefaction. If the overcoat was on the body at the time,
Then only the fish would have started to rot.
with today's science, it is not yet possible to determine if the body was chilled.
But today's science is advanced enough to let you freeze a corpse, it seems.
But surely, to chill a corpse like that would require an enormous electrical refrigerator. I don't imagine many households in London are equipped with such a device.
No, definitely not, but maybe in a factory or some other special places.
I don't recall seeing any factories or such like on Fresno Street, though. I wonder if the inspector's body had been chilled somehow. What might the actual time of death have been? I couldn't say for sure. But at the most, it might have been a day earlier. No! In other words, it would corroborate your previous deduction, Mr. Naruhodo. That Inspector Gregson was killed the day before his body was discovered, at a different location.
Did you inform Lord Strongheart of this possibility?
He simply said that there were no electrical refrigerators of that size in the vicinity.
Well, okay. Oh yeah, one other thing. It's something of the governor of Barclay Prison told us. He said that your mother, Dr. Scythe, was responsible for confirming the death of the professor after his execution.
The professor.
Apparently you always enjoyed listening to your mother's stories about her work, so we're wondering if you might know something about what happened 10 years ago?
That's not all Mama did.
Sorry?
My mama carried out the autopsy of Clint Van Zeeks as well.
Aw, shit. What? Really? The brother of Lord Van Zeeks, the professor's final victim.
The idea of carrying out an autopsy on the member of the aristocracy was completely unthinkable back then. But a detective in charge of the investigation insisted, and it was miraculously authorized. That detective being Inspector Gregson, of course.
Quite an accomplishment for one man.
That autopsy provided the vital clue needed to arrest the killer. And Mama was there for the historic event.
What does all this mean?
You know, an amazing autopsy happened right here in this very room. The professor and Clint Van Zeeks. They both spent their final moments before their burial on that dissection table there. So this lab, Mama's lab, was instrumental in some of the country's most important events.
She really is proud of her mother. I wonder if you'd tell us more about exactly what happened back then, Dr. Gory. Boop. Why was it on present? Oh, right, because we presented the autopsy report. Right.
The professor's execution was Mama's first big case. She had to be in attendance at Barclay Prison's execution chamber and sign the certificate to confirm the convict's death. Mama's the best coroner in the world, you know. I was so proud of her.
But the execution didn't actually take place.
No, and worse still, Mama actually helped with the jailbreak. I didn't want to know. Oh dear, you found out recently, you mean? I believed in her, in Mama, but now I wonder if I'm starting down the same path as her.
You mean because you omitted the time of death on this autopsy report? But that's because Lord Strongheart forbade you from including it.
Just like Mama. I'm sure she was coerced by somebody else too.
Yeah, that's my feeling as well.
There's no doubt that there were powerful forces at play 10 years ago. The execution couldn't have been staged without a lot of people at the prison knowing about it. Obviously, the prison governor must have been in on it as well.
The big man with the little handcuffs? According to what he told us, he was tricked by a chief warder. He says he knew nothing about it.
Of course he said that. I'd say the same thing.
Just who was behind that jailbreak all those years ago, then? You mentioned the autopsy of Clint Van Zeeks.
It was at a time when carrying out autopsies of murder victims was very unusual. It's still not a practice that's been observed in our country, even now. It turned out he was the professor's final victim, and when the autopsy was performed, Mama was present, although only as the secondary assistant. The person leading the procedure was called Dr. John H. Wilson.
All right, y'all need to stop. Y'all need to stop throwing the John Wilsons around.
That's right, my daddy.
And there was one other person present, the primary assistant. He was a visiting student from the Far East.
Wait, a visiting student?
It must have been my father, Yujin Mikotoba.
I had no idea Professor Mikotoba had been involved in something so important.
But the outcome of that historic autopsy was the discovery of a vital piece of evidence that led to the capture of the professor.
So that's how they came to identify Genshin Asogi as the infamous mass murderer. Do you happen to know anything about that piece of evidence? Can you tell us any more?
Would you like to see the records for yourself?
Would that be alright?
What's the point of keeping records if people can't look at them? They're filed under the V at the back of those cupboards, with the other records from the last decade.
Thank you! Oh my god, she's cooperating. Let's see, Van Zeeks. That's strange.
What, Mr. Naruhodo?
They aren't here. There's nothing other Van Zeeks.
There must be!
Perhaps somebody took them away?
No one's allowed to take documents related to the professor case out of this room. But you're right, they're gone!
Well, when was the last time somebody looked at them? Do you remember?
It was... Oh yes, I remember now. It was 2 years ago. A consulting detective came one day saying that he'd like to see the records.
Oh, Shubsy.
No, you don't mean... Herlock Sholmes was his name.
God damn it. Duh, deep down, I knew that was coming. All right, Sholmesy, enough with the funny business.
Do you think he stole the records? Oh no, surely not. Iris, that can't be right. Can it? Iris?
Iris? You good? Herlock everywhere. You right.
Runo.
Bruno, I hope you don't mind, but
What is it, Iris?
I just remembered something very important I have to do. I'm going to have to leave you now.
Oh, this is very sudden, Iris. Well, we'll come with you then.
Oh, no, there's no need. You and Bruno can take your time here. Bye for now then. Good luck.
Wait a minute, little girl.
Huh? Me?
I remember now. You've been here before, haven't you?
Have you, Iris?
Yes, 2 years ago, when a detective came. You were with him, weren't you? You were a living specimen then, too.
She's a living specimen now. What the fuck are you talking about? That's the way it usually works, yes.
Was I? I really don't remember. Anyway, sorry, but I must dash.
Wait, Iris.
I'll brew a pot for you when you get home.
What's the matter with her? She's behaving really strangely all of a sudden. Well, in that case, we won't keep you any longer either.
It's been quite a while since I had any visitors. This was really fun. Next time you come, I prefer if you were ready for dissection.
I can't make any promises, sorry. It's a bit strange that the records of Clint Van Zeek's autopsy have disappeared. I think we've asked all we came to ask now. Iris! Get back here! Ah! Van Zeeks isn't even in his room! Kaden isn't even here! Oh, this is new, though. The police are still busily investigating in here, then.
But Gina's nowhere to be seen. Where is she?
Yeah, it has been blissfully quiet, hasn't it? Hey, I like her. Perhaps she's out investigating on her own, practicing what her boss taught her.
Well, I expect she'll be back before too long. Shall we wait?
Actually... Yeah, don't worry, game, I see it. There's something different about this room since the last time we were here, isn't there? Don't zoom in on it. I don't need to be patronized. A thank you. This old trunk wasn't here before, was it?
Oh, it appears to be made of metal. Must be very heavy. I wonder to whom it belongs. There are some initials on the outside. Look, TG.
Tobias Gregson? Or, Turgid Grumbolt. I don't know, that was the first thing that came to mind. Let's ask one of the policemen if they know how it came to be here.
do you think you're doing? That's my trunk, that is. Hands off.
Gina, you're not TG. Actually, I believe you'll find if you look at her name in inside of the court record, you'll see it's Tagina Glistread.
Why'd you pronounce your last name like that?
Listen, when you add the extra layers, it gets really fucking weird, okay?
Where were you hiding? I don't know. You leave something unattended for a few seconds and every Tom, Dick, and Harry's got his greedy eyes on it.
Just a wild guess, Gina, but...
What? Spit it out, Odo.
Is it fair to say you've only owned that trunk since this morning's trial?
What are you trying to say? Come on, this trunk goes with me everywhere. Always has. Where have you been the last year?
Try not to incur your wrath, mainly.
You should hear them talking at the yard now. They should be ashamed of themselves. They're saying that it was the boss who killed all them bludgers.
Ah, you mean the whole Reaper thing?
Yeah. Apparently, the boss was investigating stuff that no one else at the yard knew nothing about. Stuff to do with all them criminals what go off scot-free.
Yeah, the ones prosecuted by Lord Van Zeek who used bribery and corruption to evade conviction.
Well, then obviously it was that bloomin' Reaper giving the orders, weren't it?
But why would people be suspecting Inspector Gregson of being involved in the killings?
There was a notebook hidden in his office.
Oh no, this doesn't sound good.
It details about all the crimes that have been pegged as the Reaper's work.
What?
No. Did you see it, Gina? Did you see that notebook? They wouldn't flaming let me, because I'm just an apprentice, apparently. Even though I don't have anybody to work under anymore. But it was me who found it, and he was my boss.
That's right.
I was pretty miffed about it, so... I sneaked a peek at what it said anyway. Oh!
That's our Gina! Yeah, breaking the rules. We love her. We love her in this house. So you managed to see it was written in Gregson's secret notebook anyway, did you?
Way I see it, it's my right to read what he wrote.
And what had he written, Gina?
Dates, times, places, names, a whole long list of them. All details about the bludgers supposed to have been done in by the Reaper. But there could be an explanation for that. Perhaps it was a record of the inspector's investigations into the Reaper's activities. Exactly, that's what I said. That's the first thing you'd think, right? As it happens, it was full of names I recognized anyway.
Well, the Reaper's targets are almost exclusively known leaders of London's criminal underworld.
Well, yeah, but there was one name right at the end that was a bit odd.
At the end of the list, you mean?
I'm pretty sure the date against it was the 31st of October. Oh, the day before the inspector was found dead.
So, what was the odd name?
It weren't like a name I've ever seen before. It was something like, Nah, it's no good. I can't remember it. I don't think it was an English name. Put it that way.
Huh.
Oh dear, what a pity. There was something else too. I don't know if it matters, but the same name kept coming up over and over. Shin, it was. Don't suppose it means anything, but...
No, that means something. Did you say... Shin?
Eh? What, does it mean something?
Lord Van Zeek knew the name too. He mentioned her as well. The woman who actually did the deeds. And now we find out her name appeared in Gregson's secret notebook. We haven't seen you for a little while, have we, Gina?
Well, of course not. I've been busy, ain't I? Investigating and all that. The lads at the yard are trying to trace the boss's movements the day before it happened.
The day before? That would be the undercover investigation into the Red-Headed League, then.
Only the boss didn't go, did he? You found some cove that was pretending to be him, didn't you, Odo?
Yeah, it was Mr. Vigil who went to the park on Lime Street that day, posing as Gregson.
Well, anyway, you ain't the only one turning stuff up. I've got my own ways of getting results.
What the dog doing?
When me and me partner get here together, there's nothing we can track down. We can't track down. Oh, little
love Toby. He's such a faithful friend. The name Toby, the dog being named Toby is hitting a bit different now. Cries. So, have you tracked anything down then?
What do you think, eh? Of course we have. Can't tell you though. Police business, isn't it? Anyway, the point is, if you lot ever need any help, you know who to turn to, right? Me and the Hellhound here.
Right, because he looks oh so hellish, honest.
The Hellhound.
Gina, how about your Hellhound there?
Chief Inspector Toby, you mean? He's probably the force, he is.
In Japanese, police dog means something quite different and not altogether nice to those involved in crime.
But here in Britain, it's a wonderful compliment, it seems, for a canine at least.
It should be. After all, in the Great Exhibition case the other day, it was Toby here who managed to locate Drebber's workshop.
Maybe it's time for another demonstration of what this super dog can do, eh?
Do we have something the Chief Inspector could catch a sense of, I wonder? The wig, maybe? Snatch this wig? Well, Chief Inspector Toby, if you wouldn't mind having a sniff of this. He might be a little too keen, don't you think?
Ah!
Chief Inspector made short work of Gina there.
Ah! Look where he's gone to. Oh my, that trunk clearly still has a very strong scent of Inspector Gregson.
In other words, it must have belonged to him. Who would have fucking thought?
Oh, all right. It's a fair cop, I suppose.
And you nearly got away with it too.
You always talk so proudly of Chief Inspector Toby's nose and what it can achieve. Did it not cross your mind they might identify something that was right next to us? Yeah, that was a bit of a bloomer, weren't it?
Toby the dog is the real Reaper. That's enough now then, Gina.
Eh?
I think it's time you told us the truth about that trunk.
It weren't like that. It just weren't.
Who are you talking about?
I know it's going through that head of yours, but that ain't what happened.
All right then, what did happen?
What happened? Well, like I said before, we were trying to trace the boss's movements. So I let Toby here have a whiff of the boss's overcoat. And as soon as I done that, he went off like a shot. Straight to that sandwich.
To a sandwich? Not to a bag of chips?
Mission Naruhodo, I believe Gina means the witness.
Oh, I forgot about that sandwich.
Yeah, he had it hidden between the wonderful boards of his, the boss's trunk.
You mean when they heard the sound like a gunshot and all piled in here?
Exactly, he nabbed it from the scene. Goodness. Me and the Chief Inspector gave that sandwich a good grilling, and you know what he said?
I thought it might fetch a good price. The chap wouldn't be needing it anymore, so... But that's all I did. Nothing more, nothing less.
Would you hand to me the cheek of it, eh? Stealing the dead boss's stuff to flog.
So Miss Venus wasn't the only one to meddle with the scene of the crime then.
How could they?
So anyway, that's how
it happened. And it's a pretty decent trunk, so I figured I might as well make use of it. Is there something wrong with that, eh? Well?
Maybe you and Mr. Sandwich should try and find the answers to that together.
I think perhaps the trunk should be turned over to the police, don't you? What are you on about? I am the police!
Gina, if you wouldn't mind, could we maybe examine it?
Yeah, alright then. Do what you want with it.
Gina and Gregson cookout moments.
Thank you. Why did I turn British there? Oh god, it's still happening. Hold on. Alright, I'm back. Thank you. We shall make a detailed record of our examination of the evidence.
Gregson's trunk. What the dog doing? Why is he acting so aggressively towards me all of a sudden?
Mr. Naruhodo, be careful! It must be the trunk! Ah! Toby! Oi! What are you doing? You're gonna lick his face off! Mr. Naruhodo! Mr. Naruhodo!
I can't believe it. I've been done in by a dog.
Gina, quickly! Hail a carriage!
I always knew I'd go out this way.
Oh, fuck my head.
Oh, Mr. Naruhodo! Are you alright?
Mr. Sato. Ah, conscious again at last. A blessed relief, my dear fellow. After all, to drop dead after a moderate licking by a small terrier. Most unseemly.
What is or isn't seemly is irrelevant here, Mr. Sholmes. I'm so glad there's no lasting damage. How are you feeling?
I'm fine, thank you. Did you bring me back here?
Ah, what's this on my head? A bandage?
Souls is fucking dead. Yeah, he does that. Sadly, we had no ice. That's a compress of sugar water. Sugar water?
Don't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. It's a first aid treatment that my father taught me.
Oh,
Thank you.
so let us take tea when you're feeling up to it. But of course, no sugar in the patient's cup. The bump on my head is throbbing sweetly enough.
Don't worry. Whenever you feel ready, then.
I'll be right back. I gotta talk with somebody. Gina! Gina, are you around? We need to talk. There you are! Listen, about the dog. Gina, I'm really sorry.
It's daft, isn't it? If you asked me a year ago, the cops could go hang for all I cared.
But we've gotta have police, ain't we?
To catch the bludgers.
So us divers can go about our business in peace. Wait, sorry? I don't think I could have heard that correctly.
He said he was going to teach me everything I needed to know to be a detective. But all he got around to show me is where the best flaming fish and chip shops are.
Actually, that reminds me. Gregson said he was supposed to be going to Paris in the near future, didn't he?
Is something wrong? Oh, no, I'm sure I'm reading too much into things. It's just that the timing seems very coincidental.
Huh?
You know, the boss was acting a bit strange recently, like he was always in a rush.
Ouch. I do miss him. I miss him a lot. I miss my Inspector Tails. I miss him a lot. I'll be back. Well, I mean, I have two inspectors, so I mean, even if Gregson is gone, we still have Gina, and she's a treasure. So I mean, but God, okay, Sholmesy, get over here, you himbo. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Sholmes. My dear fellow, think nothing of it. I must say I was quite startled when I heard that you'd been attacked by a dog. For a moment, I feared that infamous murderer of so many had come back from the dead. You mean the professor? Fortunately, I see your prized throat is unscathed. That stiff, turned-up collar of yours obviously afforded to some welcome protection. Was I that close to death? All I really remember is the dog licking my face over and over again. Well, if you wish to avoid such troubles in the future, a little mustard spray on the cheeks should do the trick. Sholmes is not a himbo, and I will...
He's at least a half himbo, isn't he?
I should think that would balance the sweetness of your bandage rather splendidly. He's a okay, yeah, half twink, half himbo. Yeah. Glad we got that all settled nice, all nicely. Sholmes is just a silly man. That works too.
Are you alright, Mr. Naruhodo? It's rather unusual to find ourselves in the middle of our investigations.
It's just occurred to me that I might have forgotten something when we left this morning.
Please don't worry. As long as you continue to investigate thoroughly, you won't go far wrong.
Oh, yes, of course. I must get back to work as soon as possible.
But what do I do, eh?
I mean, I guess we can investigate the trunk. I should probably investigate that trunk. I feel like something's about to happen.
It's like something's about to happen, but I don't know what. If that means what I think it means, then we're in trouble. Big trouble.
Have you seen this huge gash across the side of the trunk here? It's gone right through the leather and into the metal behind. Gosh, for a metal chest like this to have been so badly damaged. Whatever made the gash must have struck the side of the trunk with considerable force. I wonder how it happened. Let's have a look inside. Let's have a look inside. Immediately looks at the bottom instead. Look, there's something on the inside. Oh, let's see. It appears to be a passport, authorizing him to travel overseas. Was Inspector Gregson about to go on a trip abroad? Naruhodo, we literally just finished talking about how he was planning to go to Paris. Perhaps the day of departure might tell us something. That was... Oh, what is it? It's for travel on the 31st of October, just one day before the incident. What, really? He was just issued for travel to France the day before his body was discovered. Gregson went to France the day before his body was discovered? Wait, what? Anyway, what's this about? Look at this dark stain here. Do you think... Yes, I'm afraid so. I think it's blood. I knew you were gonna say that. So that presumably means... that was present at the scene when Inspector Gregson was killed. It's the most logical conclusion, yes. To think Jean has been carrying this around with her. If you didn't know any better, I suppose it does look like a grease stain from all the fish and chips. Oh, Tobias. Tobias. The same architect. Okay, I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm gonna have to join Rubbish's side on this now. Anyway, where were we? What did I walk in on? What on earth is going on in here? Am I having a bad dream? Ah, no, it's an old German folk song. Rather a fine rendition, I think. That's the least of my concerns. Iris? Iris? What's the matter? Who's that that relaxed gentleman over there? Iris? Is she even listening? Excuse me, sir. I do apologize for troubling you whilst you're singing so merrily, but would you be kind enough to explain the situation? I don't think he's singing there, buddy. Well, that worked. A crooning gentleman and a mute young girl, a rather tantalizing juxtaposition. And one that appears to have incited the gods of deduction within me to find their voices too. Is that, yeah, I was about to say, is that Mikatoba? I mean, I kind of knew by the hat and the mustache, but I just wanted to confirm. That's Mikatoba, right? Ah, Mr. Sholmes, do you mean... Yeah, it's pretty obvious, but I just wanted to confirm. The strains of reasoning within me are playing now as a delightful duet. One melody sings of a reunion full of nostalgia, whilst the other is a morose theme about the great secret you're trying so desperately to conceal, Iris. She's turned as white as a sheet.
So as usual, you've instantly seen to the very heart of the matter.
And by the time my own brief performance is over, I feel sure this gentleman's song will reach its finale. So then, to Musicland, where all is sweetness and delicacy and harmony. Pray, do enjoy Herlock Sholmes' latest Logic and Reasoning Spectacular.
Let's go. Deduce in honor. Let's go. Man's identity.
Firstly, we must consider the gentleman's nationality. Clearly, he's a German with no grasp of the English language, as evidenced by the Germanic song he sings and his apparent inability to understand when asked to desist. So why is the man here at all, and in such apparently high spirits? The answer, of course, Iris, is clearly known to you. Indeed, we need only follow the gaze of those bright young eyes to unravel the particular part of the mystery. The reason for the man's mildly irritating warbling is revealed by the herbal tea. You obviously offered our German guest a cup of your latest herbal blend. The tea's delectable flavor has made the man's spirits soar, and resulted in this joyful ditty tumbling incessantly from his lips. I eagerly await sampling the flavor myself, that I may join the fellow in his state of elation. Now to the next question. Who exactly is this gentleman availing himself so thoroughly of the settee? As it happens, a number of years ago now, a certain gentleman of German origin engaged my services in solving a particularly delicate case. He required the retrieval of letters once sent to an acquaintance that might have proved problematic. In order to conceal his noble identity, he also arrived in my office in a mask.
Is he actually singing? I doubt it, because literally everything else in this game that's been actually spoken word has been, like, at least lip-synced. So, I don't know.
The gentleman's name was Wilhelm Gottschalk Sigismund von Ormstein, the King of Germany. If my memory serves, the mask worn by this gentleman is identical. Yes, there can be no question. That mask belongs to the King of Germany.
Bruh, we have had that mask in our room all fucking week.
It would appear that His Majesty remembers the fine service I afforded him, and decided to show his face again, mask and all, in order to express his gratitude. A well-mannered monarch indeed, wouldn't you agree, my dear fellow? So the identity of this masked visitor is in fact my former client, the King of Germany. Indeed, his son is currently in London as well, enjoying the wonders of the Great Exhibition.
Alright, I'm gonna be right back. I smell something burning. And I just want to make sure that it's nothing serious. So, I'm gonna be right back. Sorry. Okay, so good news. Good news. The burning was nothing serious. It was just the smell of delicious popcorn from the other room. Nothing serious. Anyway, let's get back to the deduction, shall we? Indeed, his son is currently in London as well, enjoying the wonders of the Great Exhibition. Topic number 2, the girl's silence. Which leaves us with one remaining imponderable. Yes, you, young Iris. It's just, whenever I smell something burning, I really do have to go check just in case. Cause about a year ago, there was a smell of something burning, and I went to check, and one of the unoccupied houses in this neighborhood was burning down, so that was fun. Anyway. But your apparently inexplicable silence is unable to hide the truth. Yes, the reason for your muteness is concealed inside that knapsack. A £5 note, I believe. I must say, as your compatriot, I'm deeply saddened. It would appear that you allowed yourself to be bribed into silence by His Royal Highness, earning yourself some spending money in exchange for keeping quiet about the king's secret. And now the final piece of the puzzle. What is the secret you strive to hide with your silence, Iris? Ah, yes, we only follow that brief involuntary twitch of your eyes to find the answer. You were attempting to abscond with that coffee cup. My favorite coffee cup, in fact. Or should I say, the handle of my favorite coffee cup. Also, couldn't we have learned this from taking his mask off? We don't interrupt the dance. It appears His high-spirited highness broke it in the midst of his hijinks. Which leads us to the sad truth. My favorite coffee cup has been broken by the King of Germany, and Iris, you tried to conceal it from me. I shall have a bill sent via government channels to the German royal family for its replacement. No. All right, let's do this for real. Thus concludes Sherlock Holmes' great deduction of this painful puzzle. You ever find the German royal family for fun? Ah, yes, tax the rich, I always say. It's one of my mottos. Anyway. With your silence as well, the fellow's jovial warbling rather brings in the ears, does it not?
Mr. Sholmes, I must say something does rather trouble me.
Pray, Mr. Sato, do tell.
His Royal Highness doesn't appear to have moved a muscle since we arrived. I swear to God, if he's dead.
Ah, and you haven't said a word either.
And you haven't said a word either, Iris.
If Mr. Sholmes has it all right, you might as well own up to it now. Your reasoning isn't entirely without substance, I must admit. And one other thing, Mr. Sholmes. Yet another grievance, Mr. Naruhodo? Surely not. Well, actually, I read the story of that case recently, the one you were just describing. And according to that, at least, it wasn't the King of Germany, it was the King of Bohemia. Goodness, was it?
Yes, that's quite true. Master Gotz, the prince, testified to that in court. In his words, I have come to the great exhibition all the way from my home in Bohemia.
I would ask you to keep that minor error to yourselves. It could easily become quite a scandal.
I believe, Mr. Naruhodo,
that it's our turn now to make some corrections to a number of minor errors that may have slipped in. Yes, even Mr. Sholmes is willing to admit he might be slightly wide of the mark in this time. Could somebody stop that song? It's a nice song, it's overpowering my voice here. Although it's clear that Iris is definitely hiding something. We need to find out the truth behind this mysterious scene. But one truth is incontrovertible. My favorite coffee cup is no more. Is he singing? No, the song is playing. We don't know where it's from. Oh, hold on. I'll turn it up a little. Oh, shit, of course now it goes. Of course now it goes away. Damn. There was a song playing, though. On a joint presentation of Sherlock Holmes' Logic and Reasoning Spectacular. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes. If it plays again, I'll turn it up a little bit, if it's not audible in the stream. Firstly, we consider the gentleman's nationality. Clearly he's a German with no grasp of the English language. Oh. Something like that. I mean, it's still probably hard to hear under the deduction theme, but there is a song. There is some sort of song playing. As evidenced by the dramatic songs he sings, his apparent inability to understand when asked to desist. So why is the man here at all, and in such apparently high spirits? The answer, of course, Iris, is clearly known to you. Indeed, we need only follow the gaze of those bright young eyes to unravel that particular part of this mystery. The reason for this man's mildly irritating warbling is revealed by the herbal tea. The Doggle, I can't time you out, but you're technically not doing anything wrong, but I'm looking at you. So what? It's some mix of herbs that gives you the urge to sing?
Goodness, I should like to try some.
And I'd like to hear your singing, but this man... How long does he intend to keep up with that tune, you suppose?
As I said, he's been stock still the entire time, and if you look closely, his lips aren't moving either.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what's actually responsible for the spirited singing. But I suspect the answer lies at the end of Iris's gaze.
Literally, guys. Wait, this
is a gramophone, still rarely seen in our country.
True DILFwife station wrote, does he have a son? The sound certainly appears to be coming from the horn. But machines singing, that can't be right.
Science and technology are changing the world rapidly, Mr. Naruhodo. What's right is changing too. Get with the times.
It's too much for my brain.
Well, at least we found our answer.
Take that!
The reason for the man's mildly irritating warbling is revealed by the gramophone. Indeed, for no well-bred gentleman would break into an obscure folk song while making a social call. In other words, this gentleman isn't singing at all. In fact, it would appear that the fellow is unconscious. Duh! Ah, the music seems to have stopped now.
Somehow.
Is there a ghost in here? Oh God. Sasato-san, is there a ghost in here? I ask you, Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes?
Why would I have purchased the recording of that gibberish? How should I know? Also respect the German language, please. Well, never mind. On with the deduction. Who exactly is this gentleman availing himself so thoroughly of the settee? As it happens, a number of years ago now, a certain gentleman of German origin engaged my services in solving a particularly delicate case. He required the retrieval of letters once sent to an acquaintance that might have proved problematic. Why am I voicing all this again? I don't know. Sholmes is just fun to play the role of. In order to conceal his noble identity, he also arrived at my office in a mask. The gentleman's name was Wilhelm Gottreich Sigismund von Ormstein, the King of Germany. If my memory serves, the mask worn by a gentleman is identical. Sholmes is like 30. Yes, he is 34. The same age as Gumshoe in the first game. Although we've already established that it was actually the King of Bohemia, seems Mr. Sholmes intends to persist with his Germany theory for some reason. Come to think of it, the young prince was wearing a mask as well, wasn't he? Actually, let me double check. I don't want to sound like an idiot. Hold on. So like, wait, he's the same. I need to double check. I need to see the court record when I can.
Master Gods, the boy whom you had in tears?
Don't remind me or anybody else.
You suppose all members of the aristocracy of mainland Europe wear masks?
Wear masks? I'm sure they do. Well, probably anyway. The point is the mask doesn't belong to any king.
That's right, as we well know, because we can identify the true owner of this mask.
It's Pepino! Shut up. Yeah, 34. Sholmes is 34. I don't know why I scrolled all the way around. It was because I was looking for Kazuma.
Take that!
Yes, there can be no question. That mask belongs to Kazuma Asogi. In other words, my memory is sublimely unreliable. Only you could try to make that sound positive. Kazuma's mask had been languishing on his metal chest for several days. Although that doesn't explain why the gentleman is wearing it now, but it is now a simple matter to determine our guest's true identity. After all, the gentleman is unconscious. We'd only excuse ourselves in advance, gently lift the mask, and peer beneath it. I don't believe it.
Ah! Father!
Damn, that mask is really good at hiding people's faces to you people, apparently. I'm afraid, Mr. Sato, you must be mistaken.
No, I think not, Mr. Sholmes.
Then it would appear our logic and reasoning has once again revealed the truth. This mysterious visitor
Is my unconscious father, Yujin Mikotoba.
Even Sasato's in the little dance of deduction. Hell yeah. Logic and reasoning are just looking and saying. Which leaves us with one remaining imponderable. Yes, you, young Iris. But your apparently inexplicable silence is unable to hide the truth. Yes, the reason for your muteness is concealed inside that knapsack. So that's a 5-pound note looking out from Iris's knapsack, is it?
Oh dear, I can't be so sure. Most money that we encounter is in coin form.
I know, I'm not even sure if we've seen any banknotes here in Britain at all, have we?
But anyway, father would have never paid money for Iris's silence.
He certainly seems like the silent type himself, though, judging by his present state. There must be some other reason for Iris's silence, I suppose.
Perhaps what Iris is trying so hard not to give away with her eyes is something entirely different.
I was about to say, can I not look around, or? Wait, yeah, that's open! It contains important documents, doesn't it? I only clicked it because it was like the one thing to the left, but I didn't even realize it was open. It contains important documents, doesn't it?
Yes, details of all the cases Mr. Sholmes has worked on over the years. Written up by Iris's father, if I'm remembering correctly.
Iris insists that the chest is kept locked at all times. She's never once shown me inside.
Well, its contents are invaluable to her, I suppose, and entirely irreplaceable. But look at it now. The catch is unlocked for once.
Yeah, so it is! That's hard to ignore.
Very. I've never seen that chest unlocked before in all the time we've been staying here at Baker Street.
Take that!
Except she was like 30 in the first game. Okay. Yes, the reason for your muteness is concealed inside that metal chest. An excellent observation. For upon closer inspection, there's something different about the chest's appearance. It's kept locked at all times, yet now the catch is open. Evidently, this has something to do with your refusal to speak, Iris. But it's a simple enough matter to incite you to speak, I'm sure. I need merely open this chest. Oh, right, I was about to say kids, but then I remembered, oh, right, the mobile game with the Layton brothers, I believe. Wait, were those his children? I never played that game. I need merely open this chest. Oh shit, here he goes. Here we go.
No! Harley, don't!
Oh! Mr. Sholmes!
Mr. Sholmes, Harley!
He's dead. I can't believe Herlock Sholmes is fucking dead.
Never! Oh, Harley, I told you not to open it.
Ah, so you found your voice now, Iris. In other words, what just happened clearly reveals the truth here. Yes, the real reason for your silence until now is...
This is somewhat different to the usual dance and deduction you perform, Mr. Sholmes, isn't it?
Well, he's left me alone on the ballroom floor, so I'm gonna have to dance this next part solo. And anyway, I need to get to the bottom of this for my own peace of mind. Now then, Iris isn't usually the silent type, so...
You don't actually know the answer yet? Despite that knowing points of the finger before.
Mr. Sato, sometimes a man needs to point his finger first and think later. Oh, that's like the series mantra, isn't it?
Oh, well, if you say so. I think we'd better examine Iris more closely and to try to rescue the situation then.
The real reason for your silence until now is...
Take that!
is key. Yes, the real reason for your silence until now is that key behind your back. When Mr. Sholmes was thrown into the air before. Just before you tried to stop him, you slipped something out of your mouth. That something is the key now in your hands. No doubt the key. Wait, did I read that right? You slipped something out of your mouth. That something is the key now in your. Oh, okay. That's why she was silent. Okay.
You're so clever, Bruno.
So now it becomes clear. No, I don't think she ate it. She was just holding it in her mouth or something. Thanks to Mr. Sholmes' graphic demonstration, we can well imagine what happened here.
But
Like a chipmunk? Good comparison. Professor Mikatoba also opened that metal chest only to be punched into the air. And landed sprawled on the settee.
But wait, it doesn't explain all the facts. What about the stylish scarf, the cup of tea, and above all, why would he be wearing Kazuma-sama's mask?
Well, for those curious details, I can think of only one explanation. Clearly an unbelievable miracle took place in this room. Isn't that right, Iris? Consider how the room was arranged before this painful experience took place. Professor Mikatoba opened the chest, completely unaware of what awaited him inside. The mask was flung into the air just as he was, only to land neatly on his face when it fell back down. And the teacup's journey through the air ended when it caught on the unconscious professor's finger.
You mean to say that stylish scarf is actually just a tablecloth?
That's Great Detective's office, after all, a place of miraculous deductions. Damn, Sasanto's small. I always forget. Would you expect anything less?
Yes, you're right. It happened exactly as you said. Brilliant, Bruno.
Thus concludes Ryunosuke Naruhodo's great deduction of this punchy puzzle. Okay, but like, what was the point of all this?
So then, why would I make a fresh pot of tea for us all?
Objection!
Oh shit! Wait, he has an objection voice clip? An admirable performance, Mr. Naruhodo. But in the final act of the show there, you rather missed everything of importance.
Mr. Sholmes!
If you would cast your mind back to my earlier deduction. Iris, clearly you're hiding a great secret.
Duh!
She is? From the look on her face. Mr. Sholmes must be right. Whatever that great secret is, the cat isn't out of the bag yet. Also, how is he awake? He just does that. I think he used that back in the first game a few times. It's been a month. Listen, Sholmes just does things. I can't explain him, okay? So I put it to you again. You were attempting to abscond with that coffee cup. Yeah, are we sure Sholmes isn't Phoenix's descendant? No, I know literally that Naruhodo is Phoenix's Japanese name. So, you know, I'm just making a funny little joke. It really is a shame about Mr. Sholmes' cup. It must have been smashed when Professor Mikatoba opened the chest.
Oh dear, so many things seem to have been broken here.
But now that the deduction has taken a different direction, Iris doesn't seem to be trying to hide the broken cup anymore.
In other words, her great secret is something else.
Let's put our observational skills to work here one final time, then. You're attempting to abscond with a coffee cup. Aw, look at the little, I know these are always here, but it's always cute to see them right here. Surely this time, at last, the knapsack is going to be the answer. I'm really not sure why you're so intent on showing Iris's bag to be complicit in those events.
Because it's a sizable bag, big enough to carry things around, Mr. Naruhodo. That's what bags are for.
So the knapsack might never see the limelight, you mean?
I really wouldn't like to say.
I'm not sure if Gavin and Sholmes would be the same. I mean, Sholmes is certainly better with kids. All right, what were you trying to abscond with? What else can we examine? Something under the plate? Ah!
Ah, look! There seem to be more papers there. Is Iris trying to hide them underneath the tray? The insignia, Mr. Naruhodo. It's an official Scotland Yard document. What? But why would Iris have... We must ask her.
An official Scotland Yard document.
Take that!
You were attempting to abscond with that case file. Iris, as you know very well, nothing escapes the attention of a great detective.
Oh no.
We visited Scotland Yard's autopsy laboratory earlier today. And Dr. Gorey informed us that the autopsy report Clint Van Zeeks had gone missing. Clint Van Zeeks. Yes, I do seem to recall. Some years ago when I asked to see the report in question. You were with me, weren't you, Iris? You mean it was you, Iris? So those papers you have there are...
I'm sorry. Forgive me!
Oh, baby, don't cry, don't cry. It'll be okay. Listen. You are literally baby. You are literally baby. We can reach an understanding. Deduction complete. In truth, I would like to have thought I could have predicted the booby-trapped chest, but it caught me completely off guard. I was very nearly the late consulting Detective Herlock Sholmes.
I'm sorry, Hurley.
Wait, so you mean this autopsy report really is...
Yes, I took it from the lab, even though I knew it was very important.
Was there something in it that troubled you, Iris?
Not exactly.
Fuck!
Not exactly something that troubled me, but something I've been looking for. When I saw this report, when I saw the writing in it, I knew it was Daddy's.
The writing?
Your father's writing? What do you really mean?
Iris? It must be something that's hard for her to talk about. Forgive me for interrupting, my dear fellows.
Mr. Sholmes, what is it?
I feel as though the poor unconscious gentleman on the settee has been somewhat forgotten.
Ah, the father!
Perhaps we should find our guest somewhere more peaceful to rest.
Naruhodo. Yes?
Would you be so kind as to lend him your bed? We must do our very best to make him comfortable, I feel.
Yes, of course. I'll help you carry him up.
So will I.
No, I can manage alone, thank you. You have tea to enjoy. We wouldn't want Iris's brew to stew. There's that smell again. Although this time it's distinctly more popcornish, so that's good. Because there's no better way to make the professor comfortable than dragging him upstairs like a trunk. I want popcorn now. I wonder, perhaps that was deliberate. Maybe Mr. Sholmes is making himself scarce to give the chance to talk more freely. Also, yeah, wait. Sholmes does have muscle.
And he's dumb. And he's kind. He is a himbo!
We must use this opportunity to talk with Iris. And find out what's going on. Thus concludes Pure Perry's Logic and Reasoning Spectacular. Would you like to tell us more about it, Iris? About your father? He has no ass or tits. Shit. Okay, the jury's still out.
I'm sure I told you before, didn't I? That Daddy used to be Hurley's partner.
Oh wait, oh no, she's speaking in past tense. Does that mean she knows?
Yes, and that note.
No, wait, I think she was talking in past tense before as well.
And that notes about all the cases they solved together are kept inside that metal chest.
That's right. Hurley told me, you see. He said Daddy's somewhere far away now, so we can't meet. I mean, technically he wasn't wrong. Japan is pretty far away, but also, ow.
That's one way of describing it.
Then when I secretly unlocked the chest and read through the papers inside, I started to build up a picture in my head of what Daddy must be like.
Well, that's only natural.
Just like any other girl of your age. I read that Daddy was a professor of medical science, so I studied and took my degree too.
Well, that's only natural, I suppose.
In that respect, you're not quite like any other girl of your age, though. But there was one thing I could never find out. Daddy's name.
Ah!
His name wasn't anywhere on any of the notes he had made about his work with Hurley. But then one day...
That's what happened, is it? When you saw this autopsy report, you finally managed to work it out. Is that right?
Yes.
So it was the handwriting in the report that caught her eye.
When I saw the writing on that report, I could hardly believe it. I know that handwriting, I thought to myself.
This was the same as the writing you'd see on your father's case notes.
Exactly. I was desperate to compare the two properly. I needed to see them side by side. I asked the doctor in the laboratory, but I was told I couldn't take the report. And even worse, I was told it was the first and last time we'd be allowed to even look at it there.
So you decided to steal it.
When I compared the autopsy report with the case notes I had here, there was no doubt. The handwriting was exactly the same. It was Daddy's. And the signature of the coroner at the bottom of the autopsy report read Dr. John H. Wilson. So that's how I finally found out. I had learnt Daddy's name at last.
I see.
Ever since then, I've called myself Iris Wilson. That's also why I had the brilliant idea of writing stories all about Daddy's exciting times with Hurley. I decided there and then I'd write the adventures of Herlock Sholmes. Oh, Iris, I had no idea the stories had such a deep and personal significance for you.
I can see now why the autopsy report was so important to her. And why she was prepared to break the law to get her hands on it. I must apologize, Iris. This is really all my fault.
Hurley?
I made a promise, you see, that until the time was right, I'd keep the details about your father a secret.
I know, I've been very naughty. I'll take the autopsy report back to Dr. Gorey and apologize, I promise.
Yes, we'll go together, I think.
Then, let me look after it for you until we get there.
Clint's autopsy report. The report was authored by Dr. John H. Wilson. Can I take a look at that? 31st of May, between 9 p.m. and midnight. Death from a single stab wound to the heart. Other superficial external wounds indicative of a duel. Recent scarlet ink stains visible on the little and ring fingers of the right hand, but no document and corresponding ink was found. Vital evidence recovered from the victim's stomach during autopsy. Credit to Inspector Gregson for petitioning so doggedly for the autopsy procedure. No internal trauma noted anywhere in the body. Signed, John H. Wilson.
I must go and water my herbs, I think. I'll see you all later.
Damn. Poor Iris. She must be feeling awful. I know Mr. Sholmes is here for her, but still.
Ah!
What?
How? What's the meaning of this, Mr. Sholmes?
Who the fuck is Sherlock Holmes? Me after playing this game, yeah. Mr. Sholmes? Oh, dear me. So you've noticed, I see.
But that would mean...
What on earth's the matter, Mrs. Sato? You've turned as white as a sheet.
It's this autopsy report, Mr. Naruhodo. The one from 10 years ago. The writing isn't Dr. Wilson's at all.
Huh? What do you mean? How on earth could you possibly know that?
Because I know this writing very well. This writing, it's my father.
Indeed, it's true. And now you know, my dear fellows. No, I don't know anything! What on earth does all this mean, Mr. Sholmes? Because the idea that's slowly forming in my mind is just too extraordinary to believe. Please, you have to explain. Oh, I'm so fucking tempted, but give me the first one first. So, this autopsy report was actually penned by Professor Mikotoba then. But that makes no sense. It's not possible, surely. Not possible? My dear fellow, pray take a deep breath and think again.
Yes, you're right. In some ways, it actually makes a great deal of sense.
It does?
10 years ago is when Father returned to Japan after his extended study tour of Great Britain.
And prior to his return, where was Dr. Mikotoba engaged?
Of course! He was an assistant in Dr. Wilson's laboratory, learning about forensic science.
And as an assistant, he would have aided with the dissection work, making detailed notes, which would be assembled into the full autopsy report. Once the work was complete, the head coroner would check the contents and put a signature on the document.
In other words, the only writing of Dr. Wilson's in the report would be a signature at the end.
I see. So Iris got the wrong end of the stick, you mean? She saw that and assumed the whole report had been written by Dr. John H. Wilson.
Which is very understandable, of course.
What a complicated situation. Dr. John H. Wilson, who carried out the procedure, though Professor Mikotoba actually penned the report. Fucking crazy.
Thinking about it,
Most of what we know about you, Mr. Sholmes, comes from the published stories of your exploits.
yes, The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, written by Iris.
And we really have no way of knowing what's fact and what's fiction. Most troubling for you, my dear fellow, I'm sure. So what about this supposed partner of yours? Did he really exist? Or not? Ah, you've come straight to the point, I see.
And please come straight to the answer.
I believe Iris explained it in one of her installments. He was a trusted comrade and the only person I could truly have called a friend.
And did this partner of yours truly make a record of all your cases? Are his notes really stored inside that metal chest?
Absolutely, my dear madam, absolutely. So, where's your partner now? We rarely meet. You see, he lives on the other side of the world. If this autopsy report and the records of all your old cases were penned by the same hand, if the autopsy report was written, though not signed, by your famous partner, there would be only one logical conclusion. Pray, impress me. Your partner would have to be Yujin Mikotoba. In other words, Miss Sasato's father. Upon my word, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? You are coming along wonderfully. You have hit upon the method at last. You finally grasped the art of deduction. You mean to say... Allow me to introduce you to my great friend and partner, Mikotoba. Professor Mikotoba! Fucking wild!
Does this mean that you're the real Dr. Wilson?
You know that glass breaking animation whenever you get to a deduction? I feel like that's what's happening to my fucking brain right now. No, my dear, I'm still my old self. Yujin Mikotoba, your father.
Oh, of course.
This is obviously too much for Susato-san to take in. Mood. I must say, though, how my old friend has attained worldwide celebrity as a great mystery solver is the greatest mystery of all. I still remember the first time we met. Pray remind me, when was it again, Mikotoba? 16 years ago, Sholmes. Yes, quite 16 years ago. I just arrived from Japan with Seishiro and Genshin. I was in search of lodgings close to the hospital, some comfortable rooms at a reasonable price. But rents are devilishly high in that particular area. That's right, so I decided I needed someone to share lodgings in the expense. I was fortunate enough to be introduced to Sholmes, who found himself in a similar situation. I was a callow fellow back then, a mere shadow of the great detective you see before you now. I was working at the hospital's chemical laboratory at the time, indulging my curiosities for little gain. And the situation of our cohabitation led to us pursuing cases together, you see. Wait, they were roommates? Hard to believe. It was a mere 6 years. We had a great many adventures. But in the last year of Megatoba's stay in Britain, that most infamous of cases presented itself. Hey, wait, I know now. Sholmes isn't a dope, he's a male white. The most infamous of cases presented itself. The case of which you've become rather familiar with, the Professor killings. After the trial, Cicero and I were summoned back home. Hardly surprising given the circumstances. Dilfin, DILFwife! So there you have it. I feel like all of this tomfuckery in the chat is preventing me from like fully like unraveling from this twist. And as you know, all the details recorded by my trusty chronicler remain in that metal chest.
This is just amazing! Professor Megatoba really is Mr. Sholmes' famous partner.
I'm fine with DILFwife as a term now. Hold on. Give me just 1 second. Sorry, I thought of a name for the stream VOD and I needed to jot it down as quickly as possible. Anyway.
Father.
Goodness, my dear, what a cutting look.
As your father, as your daughter, I am not the father. As your daughter, I'm very proud to learn that you were the great detective's great partner. But nevertheless, there's another mystery I really must ask you to explain now.
And that is?
You know very well what it is. The unresolved matter of Iris's father.
Of course! I'd almost forgotten about that one. I should have seen this coming, I suppose. I guess we might as well. What's going on with that?
Iris told us that all the notes in the case about the great detective adventures that are in that metal chest were written by her father. Isn't that correct, Mr. Sholmes?
That is indeed what I told young Iris.
But if you're Mr. Sholmes' partner, father, and you wrote all those case notes, then Iris's father must be you!
Duh! Upon my word, Mr. Sato. You are coming along wonderfully as well. You two have hit upon the method at last. Wait, so Iris is... You finally grasped the art of deduction. What?
What you've always told me, father, is that my mother died when I was born 16 years ago, and you left me in grandmother's care whilst you embarked on your study tour of Britain. I've always accepted that, but all this about Iris...
Oh, there it is, Susato-san's ice cold stare. No, now, hold on a minute. It was very complicated. Iris is Susato's sister. That was part of what I was thinking, but also... Does this mean Iris is like half Japanese or something? Or am I like getting my wires crossed? I mean, it's really not what you think. If it really is what we're coming to a head on here.
Then perhaps you'd like to explain exactly what it is?
There it is. Now the eyes go from ice cold to red hot. Just before she... No, really, you got the wrong end of the stick. Sholmes, say something, man. That's quite enough, my fiery fellows. Mr. Sholmes, when did he get all dressed up? Whilst I don't like to interrupt this exciting exploration of the past, Megatoba and I have an urgent matter that requires a short excursion.
But it's very late, Mr. Sholmes. Where must you go?
Why, my dear madam, is that not obvious? My partner and I must pursue our natural enemies. So, get your coat, Megatoba. The game is afoot! Oh shit, wait, hold on, tune. Wait, hold on. Oh, hold up! But... Oh, this fucks. But Solms, I really must give Sasato a full explanation, I think. Later, my dear fellow, later! Our carriage awaits us downstairs already. You haven't changed one iota, have you? Who gave the okay for every song in the game to go this hard? Yeah! I mean, really, I visited our home after 10 long years. When I open that chest in a fit of nostalgia, I quite inexplicably pass out. As if that wasn't enough, when I eventually regain consciousness, I'm plunged straight into all this.
Father, please, go with Mr. Sholmes now.
What?
I've no doubt that whatever happened, you were acting in everyone's best interests. I trust you, completely.
Sasato?
And setting the great detective and his great partner off on renewed adventures together is more than I could have hoped for in my wildest dreams.
Very well then. Speak again later. So, I believe your own work is done for today. I wish you the best of luck for tomorrow. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo. Good luck in battle. And in reaching a decision. A decision? About where to go back to Japan, I suppose?
So much happened that day that I barely knew what to do with myself. It would only be later that I'd come to realize how amidst the chaos I'd unleashed were all the clues I needed to finally unearth the truth. And that all the turmoil was necessary to give me the resolve to see everything through.
And... oh shit, you were... Damn, he wasn't lying. This really was the part 1 to Case 5's part 2.
Oh, fuck. Well, next time on The Great Ace Attorney, we will be going into the final chapter, The Resolve of Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Yeah, they definitely did better than Spirit of Justice. I'll say that much, but for now, thank you for coming, thank you for staying, thank you for watching the show, and I will see you all on Tuesday with the beginning of the end of The Great Ace Attorney. What the fuck, this game...